Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Welcome. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Thursday, September 11th. 253 days into the new year. We are live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in Burbank, California. Welcome to everybody listening around the world, across the United States. Tonight is FADERNIGHT. Call-in number is 323-825-5045. You can Skype in. Fade to Black 14. No spaces and the number 14. All of the instructions are right there on the website. I think you can figure it out. Let's call a cough button that I didn't hit in time. Oh, man. September 11th. Here we are. Big proud salute to the men and women in uniform all around the world fighting the good fight for us. Without them, there's no me. There's no you. There's no us. They are out there every single day, putting it out there, defending that Constitution, so you and I can hang out tonight. Our thoughts are also with all of the law enforcement and firefighters that protect us every single day. Need to think about that today. All right. Yeah, September 11th is a weird day, isn't it? It's a weird, funky day. And I suppose think about that. 45, 46, 47, 48. What December 7th meant for the country. And how every December 7th rolled around. It still rolls around for us, and we look back, Pearl Harbor Day, and just think about that for a second, what it meant for them. And here, today, in our time, it's September 11th. It's a crazy day. It is just... Seems like yesterday for me, and I know it does for you. So tonight is 9/11 night, and we will take your calls all night long. And I would like to hear everything, your thoughts, your memories. Did you lose a loved one, a family member, somebody you knew, a firefighter, police officer, anything, and just anything at all? What are your thoughts? Conspiracy theories? I'd like to hear those too. Or not. Or no conspiracy theories. Was it just a bunch of wackos in planes bringing down the World Trade Center towers. Was it just that? Whatever. But I would like to hear all thoughts around the table tonight. All right, I'll open up the phone lines in a minute. But that's what we're going to do tonight. The call-in number is 323-825-5045. You can Skype in, Fade to Black 14. All right? Now, that's my somber moment. The show must go on. Let's keep everything uppity and fun, or try to, okay? Because no matter what, no matter about the lives that are lost, anybody that lost their lives that day would want us today to be happy, to act like it just didn't happen. Why? Because that's the way it is. That's the way we do it in this country. We don't ever get brought down by anybody. Ever. Period. And that's the way that it is. All right. See, I got a lump in my throat. 9/11 affected me, folks. It affected you. It affected me. It changed me. I haven't shared with anybody, I don't think, that morning. I might have with Dan Fogler because he was there. Okay? Oh, there's phone calls coming in already. Chill out. I'll open up the phone lines in about 10 minutes. Okay? All right. But it changed me. So let's move forward here, and then I'll tell you. I'll set up where I was that morning. Today, Styx guitarist Tommy Shaw is 61 years old. I like Styx. I don't know about you. Styx for many is an acquired taste, but I like Styx. Even the Mr. Roboto Styx. I like that Styx too. I do. I like Styx. Grand Illusion, are you kidding me? Wow. Amazing stuff. Bassist Victor Wooten. Victor. I mean, I've bumped into Victor over the years. I don't know if he remembers, specifically who I am, but saw a couple of his bass clinics. And the funny thing is, today he's 50 years old, and I always looked at him as being the kid, and we're the same age. Victor Wooten and his dreadlocks, 50 years old today. Our dead guy birthday today. Check this out. Oh, Kenny Beck just tweeted, grew up on Styx and REO. So Kenny, I don't know this for sure, but just typing that, Kenny's from Chicago, Indianapolis, or Detroit. Maybe Champaign, Illinois. Kenny, where are you from? I like that. That's pretty cool. He nailed it right there. Our dead guy birthday today is William Mulholland. Now, before you go and say, who is William Mulholland? You've heard of the movie Mulholland Drive. Yes, there is a street here, Mulholland Drive, and the Mulholland Highway. He's the guy, he was an engineer. He's the guy that brought water to Los Angeles. Before Mulholland, this was dirt. It was dirt. It was a desert. And no population, struggling every year for everything. But Mulholland's the guy that brought water here. And how he did it was he figured out a way to get the snow that melted up in the mountains after winter down the hill through a series of aqueducts and then fed the Los Angeles basin with water. But that's not the real Billy Mulholland. The real Billy Mulholland was a pretty smart crook. I say that in jest. Come on. The Mulholland family is already sending me email right now. What he did was, man, I hate speaking like this because it just like it goes into fact, and then everybody just up in an uproar. The movie Chinatown with Jack Nicholson, go check that out. That is based on with Roman Polanski directed it. Was based on all the criminal activity that went around bringing water to Los Angeles. But what Mulholland did was he gave the plans to the city of Los Angeles. Here's how we're going to bring you water. We're going to build these aqueducts. But he went and bought all the land that was underneath the plans that he laid out for L.A. and then turned around and sold that land. Yeah, he's a rich dude after that one. But that's Mulholland. And without him, there would be no Los Angeles, no Hollywood, no nothing here. It would just be a desert. It would be like Phoenix. Bump. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do. Hashtag DMRadioNet. That will get you into the sandbox. It's not going to make you a fade or not. Actually, I don't know. By the way, I don't know this fade or not hierarchy or how it works or who gets blessed with the fade or not badge and who gets led into the circle. I don't know. That's you guys. And it's it's an interesting thing to watch. But if you want to come hang out with us and earn your fade or not badge, you need to come and hang out and participate. That's what you want to do. Get on the Fade or Not page. Wow. It's an honor for me just to be able to say those words. At JChurchRadio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. We have a new TweetDeck column. By the way, TweetDeck is up and running. I'm using the Chrome version of TweetDeck. Flawless. Amazing. I was having DLL issues with my video card and couldn't launch the external version of TweetDeck. I'd have to click like 8 times on the DLL file. Finally, it would load. File missing. And then it would load, then crash, and then finally it just wouldn't load at all. But now I'm using the Chrome version of TweetDeck. And if you're not using the Chrome version of TweetDeck, somebody here in Twitterland over here in the sandbox will tell you what to do. Rick today from Las Vegas got me all set up remotely. And I now have TweetDeck back. Thank you, Rick. So if you want to shoot me a question directly and avoid the clutter, because over at DM Radio Net and my personal notification stuff, we run a couple of thousand tweets per show. It's no exaggeration. It's clicking right now as I'm sitting here. So if you, I need to avoid that too as well. So hashtag F2BQ, fade to black questions. F2B2, hashtag F2BQ will shoot the question directly to me. And please, I'm just saying, I'm looking at the test. I appreciate that. Everybody's testing it. Yes, I see it. But keep the clutter out of there. Just keep that questions. Later next week, it'll be questions for guests. Okay, but tonight, Fader Night, questions for me. I may read some of them on the air. Can I be the Fader Night for coming up with Fader Night? That is from Kenny Beck. That was well done, Kenny. Now, see, that's cool for me because it's just questions for the church. Okay? Right there. Boom. F2BQ. Oh, I love TweetDeck. All right. Let's see. Facebook and YouTube. Yes, and soon to be podcast starting tomorrow. The podcast is up and live. I just did see the questions coming across right now about the podcast. The podcast is up. It is live. We still haven't posted all of the back catalog or the new shows. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. The back catalog will be up and should be up in its totality tomorrow. I did say yesterday I did not want to launch it today on September 11th. I just have issues with that. It doesn't even feel right to even talk like that. So it will launch tomorrow officially. You can go and download the apps now. And it's pretty cool too. It had a lot of downloads already, considering we really haven't announced it. If you go over to jimmychurchradio.com, there is a podcast page. You can go. Yes, now, boom, it's done. There is no premium content uploaded yet, but you can certainly go and get your account. We'll have everything up tomorrow. And what we will be doing is this. We are going to delay the YouTube uploadings. The podcast will be as nearly instantaneous as we can get it. All the new shows. Bam, 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 bam. Nightly. So that premium content, yes, it is premium. It's nearly free, but it's premium. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this one time and one time only. The podcast is only $2. $2. I want my $2. What movie is that from? I want to see it right now in Twitter. Where's that from? What movie is that from? I'll send somebody something in the mail if somebody can. I want to see that right now. Okay. I hate that 6-second delay. $2 a month will get you 48 hours of programming. $2 a month on any and every platform. Instantaneous, plus all of the back catalog. I'm not going to get into the amount of dollars it takes. Ken Lipson, Better Off Dead. I got to tell you, Ken, Kiss me's the Phantom of the Park. Mike Bara, no. The answer is no. Ken Lipson is correct. Better Off Dead. Ken, every single day, you are closer and closer to my heart. I swear, man. You just did REO and Styx and Better Off Dead in one evening. Kenny Beck, you're a little late. Two Kens that think alike. You got to like that. $2 a month for the podcast. The amount of money that it costs to run this show over the last year, you have no idea. But it's six figures. Way into six figures. So that little podcast helps us. Okay? We're not public television. I'm not doing a telethon. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. But if you want to help support the show, you guys asked for the podcast. We went and did it. We are partnered with Libsyn, the biggest, baddest, best podcast corporation out there. They do everybody. And they came to us with a proposal. We did it. We partnered. And we are supported by the best. They wrote all of the software, all of the apps. Everything is as professional and as tech savvy as it can be. There is no glitches. Everything is perfect. Everything is running. Now we are launching. So, we did the math, by the way. At 48 hours, $2, it's like 8 cents an hour. Just so please. Podcast, subscribe, okay? And you can do that over on jimmychurchradio.com. That's the only, right now, is the only time I will ever mention it. I'm leaving it into your hands, okay? I want my $2. Love Better Off Dead. I went through a Better Off Dead, really, really bad Better Off Dead period of my life where I watched that movie every single day, probably for a month. It is pure genius. Top to bottom. French bread, French toast, French dressing to go with our French fries. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so with you. All right. Normally I would take a break right here and get to emails. You know what? Let's do that, and then I'll split this up. I'll do emails in just a second. Because you know why? I just want to hear. You know who I want to hear? I want to hear Gene. I want to hear Gene. This is Fade to Black. It is Fader Night. It is September 11th. I see your calls coming in. I'll announce open lines in just a second. It's Fader Night. It's 9/11. Come talk to us. Hang out at JChurch Radio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. I'm your humble host, Jimmy Church. Let's get this night cracking, everybody. It's 9/11. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us. Do not touch that mouse. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, you have tuned into the latest phenomenon in late night talk radio, Fade to Black, starring the inimitable Jimmy Church, showcasing his continuing quest in pursuit of knowledge of the strange and paranormal. Sit back, open your mind, and let's get cracking.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
This is Fade to Black. Fader Night, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Bespoke radio for the masses. Shoot me an email right now to Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Pierce the veil of the producers. Make it good. Like this one that just came in from JC. JC. He says, hey, Jimmy, cheer up, man. I'm feeling flat, needing to perk up. Man, I'm relying on you. Let's get cracking. All right. You know, look, 9/11 was bad, man. That was a bad day. And it stuck on my frontal lobes. I will set the tones. Listen, I'm going to open up the phone lines in 7 minutes, okay? I see the phone calls. Please, I feel bad not picking up. But I just got stuff I like to do, like read email from you guys and hang out and all of that. So, okay? All right? JC, I'll perk up. I'm perked up, but, man, I just start talking about 9/11, man, and I just get bummed out. All right. At the bottom of the hour, I'll tell you where I was that morning. This email came in from Ben Miller. Ben says, he sent me a link, extinct swamp creature named after rock legend. This comes in from Durham. Researchers from Duke and Wake Forest named, Durham, South Carolina. Okay. Researchers from Duke and Wake Forest named an animal after Rolling Stones frontman Sir Mick Jagger. The now extinct swamp-dwelling creature lived in Africa 19 million years ago. It's called the Jagermerk's nida, which translates to Jagger's big fat lips. I don't know how. There's no drum roll on that. I don't know how that translates. No, it translates to Jagger's water nymph. In honor of the supersized lips that both Mick Jagger and the animal share. The fossils were found by Duke University paleontologist Greg Gunnell and Wake Forest University's Ellen Miller. And he says, who's next to be honored? It might make an interesting game. And I'll turn that over to Twitter. What animals should be named after somebody famous? All right. Okay, you know what? I'm going to take a call. Let's just do this. Let's start it right now. Hi, you're live on Fader Night with Jimmy Church. It's 9/11. Who's calling? Where are you calling from? There you go. All those phone calls came in, and I've got dead air. There you go. Call back. Email from Richard Hawken. Richard sent me today a picture of his cousin that died in 9/11. And we're going to post that picture right now to Twitter. And let's see. Let's get that going. He says, when you finish your show tonight, I'll be up for work, so I will not hear the program until tomorrow. It is now 19:27 p.m. military time, September 11th, as I write this. And I'm thinking of my young cousin, Brian Monahan, who lost his life 13 years ago today. I'm so mindful that many husbands, wives, sisters, brothers, friends were lost on that day. Here we go again. Phone calls coming in. That were lost on that day, and they will never return. I know the FADERNIGHT family will be remembering this day also, and I hope and know it will be marked in some unique way. My thoughts are with you all. And, so he sent us an image, very cool memorial of his cousin, Brian. And I'm going to post that on Twitter here in just a second, and that will be popping up. Right on, Richard. And seriously, you've been with the show since the very beginning. Thank you for the email. Okay, another phone call coming in. Did I say open lines? Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. It is Fader Night, 9/11. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Ken from Colorado.
Ken from Colorado. How are you, Ken?
Yes, the other Ken. Ken.
How are you? You're the second Ken?
Yeah, I'm the other Ken. Yeah, the other Ken that never comes through. How you doing, Jimmy?
I am doing...
Jimmy.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you, man. And it's 9/11, so let's keep the phone calls focused there. I know you were going to anyway. I'm just reminding you for some mindless, stupid reason. But what have you got tonight for us, Ken?
Well, not much. I remember 9/11, I actually had jury duty that morning.
So you were up early. You were up early.
Yeah, I was up early. I was getting all suited up to go to jury duty to hopefully decline. And, I got stuck in there, and the judge was like, well, apparently you all know what's going on today, and we don't know if we want to proceed today or not. And amazingly, everyone wanted to proceed. So we went through with 3 days worth of jury and through the whole event. It was kind of amazing.
Did they have televisions in the court or in the hallway?
We did. We actually got to go into the judges' chambers and actually watch what was going on, and it was kind of striking, considering we were all in a courtroom, like in a governmental, environment.
When let me ask you about this. Was this in Colorado?
It was in Colorado. Yeah.
Okay, so it was in Colorado. So then you were an hour ahead of Los Angeles. So did you see the impacts of the plane?
I actually was watching it on TV before I went to jury duty.
Okay, I got you.
I didn't get to see the buildings fall or anything like that, but after we got down there, I noticed that I came outside, and we're not too far away from DIA in Denver,
Right.
the big airport. And I noticed, usually you see all kinds of air traffic, and it was just quiet.
There was already they had shut down the airport by that time.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
It was totally quiet.
And before I let you go, what are your thoughts? Do you think it was just a couple of wackos in planes, or do you think it goes deeper than that?
I kind of bounce around on each side of the fence, much like you do.
Right.
I'm on both sides of the fence on a lot of things, but Building 7 is the one that gets me.
Yeah, that's pretty trippy.
Yeah, Building 7 is the one that trips me out a lot. But it kind of keeps me on both sides of the fence. But Building 7 is the one that really keeps me up in the air on this.
It doesn't make any sense. That part of this when you have different conspiracy theorists out there, and there's so many different views.
Sure.
But
absolutely.
And they start throwing stuff out that that is the one bullet in their gun right there.
Exactly.
is Building 7. That's the one where you just stop and pause and just think about it. Because
Jim, you can argue either side on, you see a lot of the buildings, the shots, they say that there's things that are flying out, look like explosions, like outward explosions and stuff like that. But, then other people will explain it off as like fire extinguishers or something like that, some kind of, fire retardant system or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Building 7 is just totally out there. It's separate.
Right. It's a completely
That's
separate. Yep. It is. It doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't.
Yeah,
and when
it is kind of a tough day, though. It's a somber day, and it's really hard to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, and in the intro of the show, when I mentioned Pearl Harbor Day, if you think about that for a second, I mean, Pearl Harbor Day was something that it's not any different than what we deal with mentally with September 11th. It's exactly that. There was a lot of loss of life and the way that went down. And the one thing that we enjoy over here in the United States is we have large bodies of water on both sides of this country. Okay.
Exactly.
And we have Canada to the north, we have Mexico to the south, and we're out here on our own island, so to speak. And
exactly. Outside of something like Red Dawn happening, we're pretty damn safe.
We're pretty safe,
when you think about it.
Yeah. So when something like Pearl Harbor happens, or we're not Russia. We're not, think about how many times.
We're not exposed like Japan. Think about Japan sitting out there basically on an island.
Yeah.
And they're stuck between, North Korea, China right next door.
Think how many times.
They're basically out there on an island.
Think about how many times Great Britain has been raided. Okay?
Exactly.
I mean, all month long, all year long, all century long. It was done for sport by the Vikings. Oh, what are we doing today? You know what? Let's go sack a village. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And just, it's been going on. And think about the V2s and the stuff that flew into London. Just constant.
I can't even imagine that happening here. We feel so protected here.
So protected.
Yeah, we are. We're so sheltered here, basically. And it's a continental thing. Geographically, we're pretty safe here.
Totally.
When you really think about it.
So that's why we were so.
So when you think about other people that are so basically exposed to other countries invading and whatnot,
right?
We're pretty well protected.
I worked for a British company at that time called HHB Communications, and so there I was the national sales manager, right? So I'm like the head cheese, and there was a guy that that was
That's
above.
cheap.
Yeah, there was a guy above me. His name is David. I won't say his last name. Who is the vice president. But that was it. And so the company, I think we had like 10, 15 employees. Big company, but we were the American wing, the U.S. wing of a British company. All right. David, the VP, kind of a figurehead. He really didn't do much there. But anyway, he was British. And that day, the 12th of September, we didn't open up the company that day. We shut the company down. But anyway, on the 12th, we get together in the boardroom. We sit down at and I'm talking to the employees and doing my impassioned speech about let's rally together and let's not let this distract us. Let's focus as a company and get through this. And Beasley, I just said his last name, stood up and he's like, man, you know what, man? You Americans, you just don't get it. You don't get it, man. Britain's been bombed and pillaged and raped and burnt for centuries. And, just deal with it, man, as American. And he pissed me off. So I almost whipped his ass. I almost stood up. And
Jimmy, turn again, though. Turn again. They did the same thing to other people, though.
Yeah, and it
both ways.
It freaked me out, his attitude about it. Everybody else here in the country was just freaked out. And he was just, pull up your pants. Quit being like, just deal. And it offended me.
There was a day after this?
It was September 12th. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Just wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He was
well, they've gone both ways, too, so he really doesn't have a whole lot of leeway there.
Well, like I said, I don't want to say his last name. Screw him.
Yeah, well, I think you already did. So.
Ken Beck. Thank you, Ken.
Hey.
What
I've been trying to call it to you forever. Remember, brother? I am the FADERNIGHT. I'm the one that came up with the FADERNIGHT name.
Yeah, you're a FADERNIGHT.
Yes,
a FADERNIGHT.
FADERNIGHT with a K.
We'll make it official. We'll get Method to come up with a FADERNIGHT badge just for you.
Awesome, brother. Love you.
I love you right back, man. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah,
all the best, man.
Send all the love out to the FADERNIGHTs, too.
Enjoy the rest of the show. I'll stay uppity.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ken. That's Ken
Take
Beck.
care, everybody.
That's Ken Beck, everybody. Ken Beck, the Ken Beck. All right. Michael Anderson, Indy, Naptown, coming in. How are you tonight, Mike?
Hey, Jimmy. How you doing tonight?
It is. Well, you got to stay uppity. It's just the right, prudent, fresh thing to do. It's a bummer day for all of us, so let's come in here. Let's talk about 9/11. I do want to know what everybody's thoughts and ideas and theories, and if you've lost a loved one, I'd like to hear about that too. So it's FADERNIGHT. It's about you, Michael. What's on your mind?
Well, I'll give you a slightly amusing and yet still eye-opening experience of the day that, on 9/11 happened. So this is after college, and I'm still in this vagabond frame of mind. So I'm living in rural Indiana. I'm living Cloverdale, Bainbridge area, out in the sticks. And I'm working at this factory that's not union or anything, but they make auto parts for, a big company. So it's, $10 an hour is big money in this town.
Delco. You working at Delco?
I'm telling you, I couldn't even remember. I think it was like American something or other.
Okay,
we were making parts for Asian cars because all the business people would just eat plums and rice and with little pits in the middle of it. Anyways,
okay, moving on. Right.
This is pretty much the eye-opening experience. I'm going through this real anti-phase. I don't want to talk to people. I'm already sick of humanity. I stopped following the Grateful Dead because I kind of got burned out on that too and realized, it just wasn't my scene and so on and so forth. Graduated college and I don't want to go to work for what I went to school for. And I just want to live in the country and live in my little shack and not talk to anybody. 9/11 happens. This toothless 60-year-old long-haired redneck comes screaming, "They just bombed the Twin Towers." Puts his arms up in the air, shakes them, and goes, we're going to war, smiling his toothless freaking grin.
Wow.
But the thing is that was the buzz. That was the talk. It wasn't, oh my God, we got, blah, 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 blah. We got attacked. What's going on? This is Midwest America, Indiana, and the country. And everybody's like, off the bat was, we're going to go kick butt. We're going to go rip off some heads. We're going to go be the man,
I remember being so infuriated that day and the next day and the next day that it built and built and built and boiled inside of me. I was thinking really, not me personally wanting to do something, but that we should, as a country, just do something really, really bad. I mean, I was angry. I'm just glad that we didn't get too freaked out. I think the reactions that we did as a country were cooler heads prevailed. And Manhattan itself dealt with things the right way. I don't know how they got through it. I could not imagine being a Manhattanite. And
I think New Yorkers themselves, are just, they're one of the original, are they one of the original 13 colonies?
New York? I'm not too sure.
Well, they're
wow.
old.
Why would you?
They're just tough. They're tough. That's urban environment at its max. They're just tough. They're tough people.
The one thing, but there is, if there is one thing that I came away from that with was the respect to the New York Fire Department. I mean, that part of it, those guys, I think, obviously they weren't thinking of themselves. And when they went into that building or buildings, they probably knew that there was a good chance that they weren't coming back. But nobody hesitated. And that's a freaky situation. And it's not, they're not the Army.
I think they have a bravado like the Marines, and I don't mean that in a negative way.
No.
You see shows about New York firefighters, they got a bravado, which is good because that's what you want.
Well, any firefighter.
A very sensitive emo guy, doing that.
Any firefighter. Now, when I see firefighters just right here in Los Angeles, I look at them with a whole nother set of eyes. Building burning, the old adage, the old thing, going in to get a cat, and putting it. Think about it. Oh man, really? Your cat is still in the house? In they go. And think about that for a second. I just look at firefighters completely different. It's not all fun and games, and yeah, absolutely. If there's one thing I came away from is the respect, and we should have already had that. You know what I mean? It should have already been there. And it took something like 9/11.
We got blown up with, country music, 9/11. Oh my Lord, the Twin Towers fell and all that. And the media just jacked us all up that we got to be patriots and go shoot crap and blow up brown people. And we get there, and the big slap in the face of all of it is there's no weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about
let's spill it all over to Libya, where or whatever. Oh, here's a guy that brought water out of the desert and gave women's rights, and everybody got free dental care. Let's kill him too because we want what they got.
That's the one funny thing. I'll say this: the one funny thing. History is brutal, but the one funny thing is we should have just left Saddam alone. Because he, no matter what, he still had that country under control, and look at what we have now. That whole fictitious war with Iraq, and now looking back, that war should have never happened completely.
But it was all. But I agree, and the whole thing was orchestrated. Whether or not, okay, let's take away the fact. I mean, you hear me all the time talk about WTC 7 won't go away, but let's take away whether or not the Twin Towers and 9/11 was even a plot. The after effect is, bottom line is, you got that general that gave a speech about how he was sitting there seeing one of his old buddies at the White House, and they said, hey, guess what? We're going to go through 5 countries in 5 years. Why are we going to do that? I don't know, because we got a military and we don't know what to do with them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a weird thing. History. Now, see, but that's the obvious. That's the obvious. That's what's in front. That's what we know. It's the backstory to that war and money. That's the part that just Halliburton and the infrastructure and employment and let's go over and now let's burn the country to the ground and then go rebuild it.
It's all about energy and then selling our crap to rebuild it.
That's the backstory.
Even Libya, it's because there was that stuff that makes car batteries, a big vein of it under the ground. Was it lithium or something like that?
Yeah.
Everything is all about energy. Tesla's not, Tesla never got to have his dreams because you couldn't sell it. And I know I'm ranting. I'm sorry.
It's all connected, though. It all started, it's funny, the tragedy of 9/11, and then Afghanistan. Well, that, apparently that had to happen, but Iraq and certainly now, with Libya. I don't want to turn this show into all of that, but I have my thoughts just like we all do. And, Libya's totally spun out of control. And we thought that would be just some walk in the park. Apparently, that's what that's my personal feelings. And now it's chaos over there. And it was better when Gaddafi was in power. And the same thing with Iraq. It was better when Saddam was there. He had control of the country, and now it is completely spun out of control. I did the show last night, so I didn't see Obama's speech on ISIL now. I didn't see the speech. I had to see it.
I wonder if there's when he says ISIS, if there's the big R and a circle.
Yeah,
top corner.
That's kind of weird.
Trademarked.
It's kind of weird, isn't it? But I didn't see that speech last night. But now, here we are because of the backpedaling and the mess that we were in, and he just wanted to pull our troops out, which is fine. I'm all for that. But now the mess that is over there, now we've got to go in and clean that up again. We were talking about this last night on the show about it's always the U.S., and I understand why. We do have the biggest military. We have the most money. We have the most this. We have the most that, and we give, and we have big hearts and so forth. I understand all of that. Okay, I'm not asking for a ton of email about this, but my point is I understand how the world looks at us for help first because we're cool, we're nice, and we always say yes. We never say no. So, but now here it is. Iraq wanted us out of there, and I understand that, but now they need us back, and now here we have this whole issue with Syria. How we don't want Assad in power. We're going to assist some of the resistance, but we're going to kill off the other half of the resistance and exterminate them. Those are Obama's words, not mine. And so now we're into this mess, but it has to happen. And the media has painted ISIS as this enemy, and we don't know the truth. We're not there. We've seen the videos and the beheading stuff. That's what we're fed. I get that. I don't want this show in any way to.
I really love how in the very beginning Putin has pretty much told us to piss off. In the very beginning, he says, "Oh, you want to do economic sanctions with us? That's fine, because to be honest, you buy more of our stuff anyways." Then after that, the best part is the gay thing, the whole, with the Olympics, the whole gay. This is how we all lead up to Putin's crazy. We're going to make the world think he's crazy because of gay. But if you read the American translation of that law, it is what it says basically is you cannot propagandize gays to kids under 18. It's not, I hate gays. Gay people have been around in Russia forever. It's basically don't propagandize in schools to kids. And they blow it up to Putin hates gays.
Really?
Yeah, read it. It's and No Agenda shows the English. It's actually a Russian lawyer that translated it for the No Agenda show. So it's on No Agenda show notes. You can find it through other avenues to English translations. It's basically saying, hey, you can still be gay and that's okay, but you can't have your rainbow flags and your unity stuff in high school, and have your little meetings to get young people to want to be followers.
Well, again, and what that represents is it's the way that it gets trickled down over here, and the way the media hits us over here. You never know,
because you really think Kim Jong-un is real, or however you say his name, is really that nuts? Do you really think he says, "Yeah, I did a hole in one and
yes,
and golf and stuff like that"?
Yes, I do. I do.
I know. I think what it is.
I do.
Think that's what we hear. I think the fact that they want nuclear warheads because those are the only people we don't invade are the ones that have nuclear bombs.
Oh, that may be true, but do I think Kim Jong-un or or whoever's over there right now? It's right? It's Kim Jong-un.
No.
Do I think he's
I'm political, but I'm awful with names.
He is completely and he's at the. This is the thing. This is the thing when it comes to North Korea. Do I think he's nuts? No, I don't. Why? He went to school here in the States. Mm-hmm. He knows what it is like outside, what the world is really like outside of North Korea. And there are some people in North Korea that also know what's going on outside of North Korea. But North Korea itself, and the way that it's cut off and isolated, and the way that they do their education programs from the very day that you're born, to think that he was born of a lion on the top of a mountain and his dad was God and was born of or whatever the story is,
it's very much despotism.
Yeah, he knows the truth, but everybody else underneath him doesn't. And so now, does it make him the population there crazy? It doesn't make them crazy. It's all they know. But him sitting at the top of everything and allowing that education process to continue and the isolationism to continue, does that make him crazy? Yeah. Does it make him a megalomaniac? Yes, it does. North Korea is very, 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 very small. It's not a big place. But because of that, they are able to control the population like they do.
But the alternative is to let us come in and tell you what to do.
Well, what I trip on, I'm going to bring in another call. We'll overlap this, okay. And then I'll say goodnight to you. Which is this: I think in a weird way, it's brilliant, and in a weird way, it's a way of now the money and everything else for North Korea, that part of it has fallen apart. But the ability to control the population like that in that way, yeah, in a weird way, it's brilliant. It's friggin' brilliant. What if, check this out, Michael, what if you had all the money in the world, all the money, what would you do? You would do what Richard Branson has done or anybody else. You go buy your own island and you run your things your way.
I'd have 15 buses buried underground in Indiana.
and that's the truth. And so, and that's in a weird way, that's what they've done over there, that whole family. They're running things their own way and they're thumbing themselves at the rest of the world. And that's it. Is it right? Is it wrong? It doesn't matter. It's their own country.
I appreciate you letting me rant tonight, Mr. Church.
Hey, thank you, Michael. All the best. It is Fader night. All right?
Have a good night.
You too, Michael. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. It is Fader night. It is 9/11. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Jimmy Church.
Yes.
Hey, am I on?
Yes, you are live.
Awesome. This is Grant Roddenberry. I have tried to reach you many times, and so glad I could speak with you tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely, Grant. Where are you calling from?
You just had me on hold, and I was listening to your conversation, and it was fantastic. But I'm calling from Southwest Virginia.
Southwest Virginia. Okay, so Southwest.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm right where Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia meets.
The tri-state area.
I am right in the mountains, right out my back door, look straight up and there's the Appalachian Mountains. Yeah.
Very cool area. Very cool.
It is very cool. Nonetheless, I was living in Arlington and Alexandria, and heard the explosion at the Pentagon that day. And you know what we did? We were 30. We were single. We went to the titty bar.
Okay.
I'll keep it clean.
Okay.
But, we had, but nonetheless, we drove around the Pentagon, and you know what I saw? I saw a clean yard.
Explain.
There was no airplane there. And I didn't think about it until 10 years later, until I started watching YouTube videos.
Right.
And the few frames of video that were released. And then I thought back to all those Hummers around the Pentagon, and it looked like a movie scene. It really did. It flames from the roof. We were on the highway, probably 200 yards from the building.
Right, that highway goes right next to
there's an off-ramp. There's a curve ramp that goes right around.
Yep, I've been on it.
We're a couple of 100 yards away, maybe. And we were afraid to try to get any closer. We just had to see, because we were so bummed. I mean, we were just totally
distraught. Grant, let me ask you, I want to be clear. Was this the day of?
This was 9/11.
Okay.
Yes.
And you didn't see anything. You saw the smoke, and you could see the fire trucks and all of that.
It looked like a movie set, Jimmy.
Huh.
It looked like a movie set. There were no wings, engines, tail pieces. I'm probably going to get taken out for this. Just thought of that. But, you were so vine ripe when you got on the air tonight. I was a DJ for a few years, one of my favorite jobs, and I noticed you were a little low when you started this evening. And I don't know, I just had to call in. I've been a FADERNIGHT since the beginning. I knew who the guy was the other night that called with the frantic call. I knew exactly who it was when he did it. And I knew with the circus music, it was a show.
Yeah. Well, it was all done. It was all done with the right intentions.
Man, you are fantastic. And I was the one who emailed you saying, change the pic. You look like you came home from a party at my house the next day. And
right on.
I'm a Roddenberry, but I'm on the poor side of the family. There's only one family, but West Coast, East Coast, and otherwise. But we drove around the Pentagon that afternoon. It was early afternoon, and it looked like a movie set. It was amazing. Flames coming out of the roof. I remember everything vividly. And it looked like a V-shaped cut in the building. This was after they had blown up the other parts just to be safe. But after I read accounts, people saying, smelled like this, smelled like that. I walked out of the hole.
Yeah.
And didn't see anything. Then 10 years later, I put two and two together, and I thought, you know what? The yard was clean. And
that's an interesting way to look at it. The one thing that upsets me about the way the government, the way Washington D.C. handled the Pentagon, because all of those we've seen so many different views of of the Twin Towers and the impact with the airliners hitting that.
Right.
But with the Pentagon, are you telling me Washington, D.C., the cradle of the known free world, right there, where there are video cameras on every corner?
Jimmy, you're going to get me killed.
That there are no videos, no. They went out and got it. They had to. There must be thousands
I heard the
of videos.
explosion. I saw the black smoke, and you know what? I drove around the place, and there was no plane wreckage. Absolutely.
No engines, nothing.
I played golf right across the river from there. I'm used to looking at pristine greens and otherwise, and I'm a landscape architect to boot. So, I noticed things like that. And, but I do believe that there were many people taken out and otherwise covered up because of what they'd witnessed on the highway or otherwise taxi drivers. And I can't hear myself on the radio in my other ear, and it kind of bothers me talking to you like this. But it was disturbing 10 years later when I thought back and looked, and it was like a rugby field. It was like a pretty green rugby field. Hey, and there was no plane there. They blew that place up.
Hey, Grant, thank you for calling in tonight. First-time caller,
right.
long-time listener, but I hate saying that, but thank you for this.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you.
I love you, Art.
We all love Art. You have a good night, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you, Grant. So let's just go right into the next one. Dino, how are you tonight, sir?
Good evening. The topic is 9/11. Let me rant for a minute, and then I'll have a dialogue with you. Okay?
Dino, it's your show. Dino,
yes,
it's your show. I'm just a guy here. It's your show.
Well, it's our show.
How are you, man?
That includes the sandbox. I just want to say, when you go down the facts, I wanted to believe the day that it happened, I was supposed to teach a high school class at a major public high school. And I saw this stuff happen. I first actually was listening to Howard Stern, and he said, "We're at war. We're under attack. We're under attack." And I said, "What?" Because I'm on the West Coast, And so watching it on TV, going to the school, the principal said, "Send everybody home." And I really thought we were under attack, that they might be hitting public places like schools. A few years later, I hate to say, with all I knew about the Kennedy assassination, with all I knew about the Tonkin Gulf resolution in Vietnam and the BS that we got involved with there, when I heard about, even studying World War I and the battleship Maine, right, and all these false flag things, it took me, I'm ashamed to say, a few years before a girlfriend of mine who's a Virgo and gets into details said, "Well, can't you see?" And you go down the facts. You go down all the patriots and ex-military people that are saying this didn't happen the way they tell us. You look at what the caller just said, about, if a missile hits the Pentagon, that's what it's going to look like. And where are the wreckage for the plane? If you look at the Twin Towers. Now, I had a cousin who was out in New York at the time, and he told me the other night, "Oh, I saw the plane hit." But then I go on YouTube, and I don't know what to believe. I see video, Spare Change, the documentary, of the plane slowing down. And in slowed down motion, you look that it's not even an airliner. It's got something strapped to the side of it. I don't know if that's true, but it was a military plane that hit one of the towers. Then you hear about the technology. It's all the stuff that we're talking about on Fade to Black and with Art Bell. It's all the technology that the breakaway society has that's hidden. For example, a hologram. Could they have shot a hologram up there to make it look like a plane hit the place? Or could it have been a weapon that we don't know about? Then you look at Tower 7, and you look at the controlled demolition. Jesse Ventura is just the last person to get into that, but he was a Navy SEAL, and he did do demolitions. And you look at some of the early footage before the end of the day when we were all still in shock. And the news media, when they were talking to the firefighters in New Jersey, said, oh, yeah, when we arrived there, it was boom, 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 boom. And then you didn't see it because it was cut off of the evening news. And you see how the media was part of it. And I just hate to say that this was a false flag. And then you hate to say, like, the flight that we're talking about now that disappeared over the Indian Ocean, they still haven't found. You wonder what happened to the poor people. Were they abducted? Were they just sacrificed for the neocons? And I hate to get political on your show, but the neocons that were in, and I make no thing about that, I didn't like Bush Jr., but the fact that he was left in a classroom, they already knew that the attack had happened. Why didn't they pull him to safety? It's like it was all orchestrated, and that's what I'm going to say about that.
Okay, this is my general thought, just in a general sense. Let's just say, this is me speaking, that it was some crazies on planes that did hit the buildings, that had nothing to do. But the problem that I have is behind the scenes of all of that. And my point is this. Did our government know in advance? Did they know what was going to happen in advance? They didn't do it. They didn't plan it. They didn't orchestrate it. But the possibility is there that they knew.
Of course, at the very least, where were the jets? Anytime any kind of a plane, and it happens several times a year, where a plane doesn't respond immediately, there are military jets up there intercepting it to see what's going on. Why weren't they up there? It took 2 hours before any military plane flew over New York after that. That's insane. You're telling me we're that whipped out in the Air Force?
Well, there's that aspect. But let me finish, Dino, for a second. Let me finish my thought, though. Is the fact that every flight in the United States is grounded, but yet there are government jets, private jets, flying Osama bin Laden's family to safety out of the country. Now that is foresight. They knew, and that I have issues with, and it just doesn't that to me is more worrisome. Not bin Laden's family, but the fact that the government knew.
Well,
so
let's tie
how
into
much?
that. I just learned today that there is a congressperson who is a Republican, and now I can't remember his name. I just read about it, and he's hooking up with a couple of Democratic congressmen, and he's asking everybody to phone your congressman. So all the activists that are on our show that want to make a call, it's HR 28. And what it's dealing with is they want the 28 pages that were left out of the 9/11 report, which I think is a bogus report, just like the Kennedy Commission was. And they want us all to call in to lift the security freeze on the 28 pages there. And they say because it'll embarrass Bush and it'll be about just what you talked about, that it probably has something to do with why planes were flying, and it probably has something to do with implicating the Arabic republics in this somehow. Have you heard about that? Number 28, HR 28, everybody should call and demand that this bill gets passed.
Yeah, I saw this week. I did see it, the missing page. I find that curious. Like I said, if there's any knowledge, and it appears that there is, of our government knowing that this was going to happen in advance, well then, hey, then the conspiracy goes deep and it goes wide. It's
the breakaway society, even if it's not the straight government. You know, the government we all salute the flag to. This is what your show is about. And this is what Art Bell's been trying to let us know, that there is stuff going on that we don't know about. And Stanton Friedman last night was saying, no, I'm not for full disclosure. I understand what he said, but even that's, and he's a Canadian, but even that's implying, and I respect the man, that, oh, there are things you don't need to know. And then that tells me that everything I learned about my America, and again, my uncle was on Omaha Beach and survived that stuff. And, you know, I had a father that was in the military just because of Pearl Harbor. And they told me back in the day that maybe that was a false flag to get us involved, you know, so the United States could spread its wings and shoot down what they needed and get the resources they needed. All wars are results of not ideology, but resources. Whether it's lithium, you watch out in Bolivia now. You know how we're not tight with South America. Bolivia has got vast quantities of lithium, and that's what all the electric cars and all the next generation of batteries are going to run on.
I'd like to welcome to the program Michael Bara. Dino, say hi to Michael.
Hello, Mr. Michael.
Hi, Dino. How are you?
I'm good tonight, but I'm stirred up.
Me too, for probably completely different reasons.
Well, yes. we're all stirred up. It's an emotional day for all of us, and so welcome to the program, Michael. And listen, I'm going to say this really quick. There's like 6, 7, 8 calls backed up. Chill out. I'll get to everybody tonight. I promise. Okay, Michael. It is 9/11. Welcome to the program, and. It's an emotional day for all of us. And now, where were you that morning?
Actually, I was at the time I was living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Actually, Bloomington, Minnesota, and I was in my bedroom. My wife at the time, no longer my wife, yay, was getting ready for work. And she had a little TV in there, and she was watching the Today Show, and they interrupted it to say that a plane had hit one of the Twin Towers in New York City. It was one of the, they said it was a small airplane, like a Cessna or something. So they flashed to it and showed video of the flames and the gash in it. And I was like, wow, that looks like a pretty big gash for this. And we just kept watching it, not really paying a whole lot of attention to it and chit-chatting about things we were going to do and our plans for the day and stuff. And as we were watching it, they had the film of the helicopters floating around or flying around. And I saw the second plane hit the other building. And I recognized immediately that it was a jetliner. Mm-hmm. And I said that was not a
Cessna.
That was not a Cessna.
Right.
And because I've worked on every plane that Boeing makes pretty much. And I said, and that was intentional. That was flown into the building deliberately. And as soon as I saw the gashes on both of them, I knew the buildings were going to come down, and it was only a matter of time before they came down. And it was shocking, it was stunning, it was life changing. It was a moment where you realize that our lives were going to be dramatically changed from that moment forward.
I saw the same thing that you did, which is everybody's heard the story about me and my little ET in my room one night, mm-hmm. And so after that night, I slept with the TV on. I was living alone at that time. And so the TV was on all night. And I remember waking up that morning with the news reports going on, and I could hear it. And I kind of looked down between my feet, and I look and it was the same thing that you saw. It was the reports of Cessnas and hitting, and I was like trying to focus and go, man, holy crap, that looks pretty big. It looked pretty big.
Yeah. Well, excuse me, can I add to this right here? I'm not a pilot, but I understand that those guys took minimal flying lessons that allegedly flew those planes. And a big jet like that, you make one little turn, it takes 2 miles to make a turn. I don't think they were trained enough to hit those towers dead center.
Okay. So this is again, I'm going to disagree with most of the people you're going to have on this show, and this is one thing I can tell you that's not true at all. I've flown the actual Boeing 737 simulator with a pilot who was one of Boeing's pilots, who shall remain nameless, who got me in there, and I wasn't supposed to get in there, and I flew it around. And one of the things we did was we flew it through a skyscraper in downtown Seattle as part of the simulation. And it was just like, hey, let's see what happens when we fly into this building. And I said, what happens when we do that? And he goes, well, I don't know, let's try it. And it's not that difficult at all. He didn't fly the plane, I flew the plane. He gave me a little bit of advice, and literally if I had flown that simulator, every day for 2 or 3 days, I could have actually pulled that off myself. I could have done the exact same thing that these guys did. So that's just simply, that's just not correct. It's
and
not
you speak English.
Well,
I do, and it's not difficult to do. And the planes are not that difficult to control. There's a lot of automation in them, even more so then in 2001 than there was in the late 80s when I flew the simulator. So it wasn't a difficult thing to do at all.
I will say this about when I did what was it, 2 months ago now, 2 months ago, when I flew out over Malibu with my friend Steve. Although, it's a little single-engine plane, but as soon as we took off out of El Monte and we are flying over downtown L.A., he literally takes his hands off the wheel, what would you call it? It's not a stick. It's
the stick, they call it the stick or the control.
Control. And he goes, go ahead, man, fly the plane. I was like, what? And I kind of panicked, because his hands weren't on. Somebody's got to fly this thing. So anyway, I flew around Los Angeles. I've never flown a plane before. Now, I do have Microsoft. I have all the flight simulators, and I have War Over the Pacific and stuff. But anyway, so I was flying the plane, and I was controlling the rudders with my feet and with some simple instructions. Well, actually, if he would have passed out, I'm not saying I could have landed it, but nobody was crashing. I'll say that. I flew the plane, and I got pretty acclimated in minutes. Getting the feel of the plane. So now I'm not saying it doesn't take some precision flying to fly into a skyscraper in a real situation with a 737, or 757 or whatever hit the Twin Towers. But
7767.
7767. But
how about the Pentagon though? That's at ground level.
Yeah, that was a 757.
Now I have to. That's where I jump in, Michael, and go, well, you know what? The Pentagon flying that across the ground like that.
If you notice, he doesn't actually hit the Pentagon. He hits the ground right in front of it and skids into the Pentagon. Is basically what happened.
What about the wreckage? So, how come there's only one engine they found and they carted away the stuff? I mean, it was gone in a couple hours. There must have been a big mess if that was.
Sir. Well, it wasn't gone in a couple hours. It took several days to clear the debris, if not more. They photographed all of the wreckage. Most of the wreckage was inside the Pentagon, where the public is not going to have access to. There isn't going to be a whole lot of wreckage left, and I've seen pictures.
Well, okay, I've seen pictures
of two different. I've seen pictures of two different engine, blade assemblies that are inside there. I've seen pictures of body frames that are on 757s. I worked on those parts. I've seen pictures of landing gear.
Speaking about pictures. Why do we only see one camera? That Pentagon is surrounded by video cameras, and all I've ever seen is one camera, and it kind of shows something crashing. Why is that being withheld from us?
Okay, hold on. Let me just jump in really quick. Hey, Mike, can you put in on your headphones? We're getting some echo coming back.
Yeah, we are getting echo.
So Mike,
what would you like?
Do you have a headset? Do you have a headset?
I'm actually using a headset. Yeah.
Okay, we're getting some echo. That's all. Somebody's speakers are on.
Well, I may have my speakers on my computer. I could turn those off.
Yeah, turn those off, my brother.
Okay.
This is the thing, Mike. Why? What is the excuse for? I'm getting this echo, and it is really bugging me. Okay, anyway.
Twilight Zone.
Why is there no video of the plane hitting the Pentagon?
Well, there is a security camera video from across the street. That's the only one most of us have seen. It clearly shows, in my mind, a silver fuselage 757 striking the building pretty much exactly as the official report says it struck the building. You have to understand that video is only 10 frames per second. So the fact that you can't see any detail is because at over 500 miles an hour, which is the speed this plane was flying at, you're only going to catch it on 1 or maybe 2 frames. And
Absolutely.
Come on, you believe too much. The Pentagon
no,
has
sir,
more than that camera.
Wait a minute, sir. Wait a minute. No, I don't believe too much. I know things. I worked on these airplanes. I know about aviation. I know about the building. I've studied all the claims of these psychos out there who try.
What about
to
the camera? The camera race. Why do we only see one camera?
I don't know. What I can tell you is that I would imagine that the security cameras around the Pentagon were all classified, that the video that they had were probably classified. Now, should that video be released? I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's probably time to release it now. But that in of itself does not stop me from recognizing the fact that a plane hit the Pentagon and not a cruise missile like some... I don't want to use.
Well, how can you base it? Because you've seen wreckage. Why can't we see the wreckage?
I've seen wreckage. If you go to YouTube, there are dozens of interviews with people that were standing right there. I mean, the Pentagon is still burning in the background. News reporters rush up to these people and say, "What did you see?" Well, a plane flew right over my head. I think it was a 757, and it knocked over a couple of light poles and flew right into the Pentagon. I mean, there's dozens of examples of people that saw this. So you have.
Well, from what I heard, they didn't haul enough tonnage away to make an airplane.
Okay, Dino, really quick.
From what you've heard, but what you've heard is probably not correct. Secondly, the other thing that's going to happen is when a flimsy airplane, and airplanes, by the way, are basically tin cans. The only reason that they're tough at all is because of the fact that they're pressurized monocoque designs. Now, the reason why you're not going to haul a whole lot of wreckage away is because a lot of it is going to basically vaporize when it hits a steel-reinforced concrete building and passes through multiple rings of that steel-reinforced concrete building. I mean, that building was designed to take a direct hit, a Hiroshima-sized direct hit, and survive.
Okay, Dino, really quick.
Is going to really do serious damage to that building?
Hold
and
on,
then the
guys.
paper on the guy's desk that was hanging out there is not even burned.
Well, okay. Hold on. Let me jump in. I'm going to moderate here a little bit. Dino, Radio 101, let me just help you out here. When Mike's done talking, then you can talk, and then when you're done, I'll talk. Okay, so...
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to catch point by point.
It's okay. It's just so that way the listeners can hear one of us at a time. Okay. Now, but Mike, let me throw one thing back at you here. Do you feel that the government, our government, did not know anything at all in advance of this terrorist attack?
Well, no. I mean, they had plenty of information that could have told them that something was going on. For one thing, the operational training and planning for this went on for 6 years, right under the nose of the Clinton administration, from about 1995 or 96 on. So they were in this country for 6 years preparing for this mission. The Bush people were in charge for about 9 months. He kept the CIA director. The problem was, for instance, is that the CIA and the FBI were not allowed to talk to each other. Now, we can discuss the reasons for that. They had a lot to do with, lining certain people's pockets with money. But the fact is that, yeah, they had reports. For instance, James Woods, the actor, was on one of the flights that was actually hijacked from, I think it was New York to L.A., about 3 or 4 weeks or a month before, and he saw Mohammed Atta and the guys that eventually hijacked that flight on September 11th, and he told the pilot, he said, "You see these guys behind me? I think they're going to hijack this airplane." And he reported that to the FBI, and the FBI came to his house on 9/11 or the next day after 9/11. So, yeah, there were reports. The problem is that you got the government is like, when people say the government, they act like it's one thing. It's not. It's a series of different companies, corporations, institutions that frequently do not talk to each other, and sometimes they don't talk to each other because they don't want to share information because they don't want to lose the credit for something. So, no, I don't think anybody at any level, from what I can tell, nobody at a top level had a big picture that said, oh, yeah, something's going to happen on 9/11, and it's going to involve airplanes. There were reports about possible hijackings that were out there. There was, James Woods' report. But that doesn't mean that the government knew everything about it, or that somebody at the top like Bush said, oh, well, they're going to hijack the planes on 9/11, so we're just going to let it happen because we want to have a war in Iraq so we can get the money out of Iraq. That just doesn't add up because there's no evidence of it.
Well, I'll answer that by saying the a lot of suspicious stuff went on. For example, United Airlines and American Airlines, unidentified insiders had made millions on stock options, that put options that were made just prior to 9/11. In addition, you had, the Bush administration resisted the formation of the 9/11 Commission. Did you know that? For over 400 days, and it was finally these girls from Jersey, they called them the Jersey Girls, who were 4 9/11 widows who pushed that through. So what was being hidden?
Well, okay, based on the Warren Commission, do you really think a government commission is the best way to find out the truth about anything?
That's exactly right. I will say.
I think that what I'm saying is there's separate things we have to get to here. I'm willing to believe, because I'm a conspiracy theorist, the possibility that there were ulterior motives behind 9/11 or the allowing 9/11 to happen. In other words, some people knew about it and knew it was going to happen, but thought, we can use this to our advantage. I'm willing to believe that if evidence comes up that supports that, but that is entirely separate from these ridiculous claims that a plane did not hit the Pentagon, that planes did not hit the Twin Towers, that the Twin Towers should not have come down from being hit by airplanes going at over 500 miles an hour, and all these other ridiculous claims that people make that simply do not add up. I mean, I think, okay, I'm going to let you go ahead and make your point. I'm talking too much.
Okay, well, all I'm saying is that engineers are not ridiculous people, and there are many firm credentialed engineers on record who are saying that those towers should not have fallen in the way that they did, and especially when they came straight down.
Okay, that's absolute nonsense. And by the way,
nonsense. You're not an engineer.
Yes, I am. As a matter of fact, I am, and I worked on
civil engineer.
In fact, no, I'm not a civil engineer, sir. I'm an aircraft structural engineer. And what I can tell you is that when a building gets hit by a plane at 500 miles an hour, and you've got fires burning in that building on multiple floors at 1,700 to 2,300 degrees, and you've got hundreds of thousands of tons of steel and concrete above those fires, that steel is going to weaken by a small percentage, and that building is going to come down. And that's exactly what would happen. And the truth is...
Well, no, is it exactly? I got to stop you on that point. What caused those high temperatures? The jet fuel is what basically like kerosene. Shouldn't it have burned out in the first few minutes? What fueled it? High rises don't have a lot of wood in them. What got it hot enough to bend metal?
Sir, the contents of the buildings were on fire. There were bodies in there. There were clothing in there. There was fabric in there. There was paper in there. There was all kinds of things.
That will melt steel?
No, the heat of the fire, which has been estimated to be between 1,700 and 2,300 degrees, will not melt steel. You don't have to melt the steel. You only have to weaken it by a small percentage, and then it no longer can perform its design function. One of the reasons why these buildings came down, which nobody talks about, at least none of the critics talk about, is the fact that lattice work that you see on the outside of the Twin Towers, that sort of Arabic lattice work, which is a little weird that it's kind of Arabic looking, those were part of the structural supports of the building itself. In other words, they carried a great deal of the stress load on the World Trade Centers. They were severed on 3 sides by the impact of those airplanes when those planes went through. That right there is going to weaken it. And then all you have to do is weaken steel by just a couple of percent, and that building is going to come crashing down, exactly as the commission claims that it came down. I mean, there's nothing that I see that's inconsistent with what the commission's claimed. And by the way, there have been studies done. There was a really great show on, I think it was Smithsonian or National Geographic, called Science and Conspiracy, 9/11 Science and Conspiracy, where they took steel of the same grade as the World Trade Centers, they stuck it over a pit of kerosene, they let the kerosene on fire, and within about 5 minutes, the thing warped. And that's all you need to have happen, is to lose just a little bit of structural integrity, and that thing is going to come down, and it's going to come straight down the way it did. You're going to have a pressure wave in front of the collapse, and you're just going to pancake.
Okay, now that you've explained that, which I don't necessarily agree with, what about Building 7? That was in no direct danger, and it had no direct fire happening.
Well, Building 7...
And it was of a different structural type than the World Trade Centers. Different construction.
First of all, okay, Building 7 is irrelevant unless somebody can explain to me.
Whoa!
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Okay, hold on. No, Building 7 is not irrelevant. That's the one thing Mike, I will say this. Any conspiracy guy out there that's going to put out a video or talk about this or speak about this, the one thing that he has is Building 7. That's the one thing where you have to stop and pause. There's just no reason for it to fall. There isn't. There's just not.
Okay,
so there
for,
is. It's who's inside the building.
Well, exactly.
CIA
Hey, Dino,
headquarters.
Hey, Dino, let me say goodnight. Let me make room for all these other callers that are waiting.
Thanks for all the time, but you gotta. It's like one of your guys said a while ago. He said, you show people the light, and some of them get blinded by it. Thank you, and good night.
Hey, Dino, all the best, my brother. You know that. Okay, let's. Hey, so Mike.
Maybe we should just finish with Building 7.
Yeah, let's talk about Building 7.
And then you can go to your other callers, and they can tear me apart if they want to.
No.
I just.
I think this is Dave Mather. Dave, are you with us?
I certainly am. Yeah, I'd like to ask, is this Bara or Bara?
Yeah, this is Mike Bara.
By the way,
I'd like to ask him, how can an airliner fly 500 miles an hour through the thickest part of our atmosphere between 0 altitude and 10,000 altitude? How can it fly the same speed it needs to fly at 25, 30,000 feet to stay in the air? It needs to fly that fast in thin atmosphere to create the lift required to keep the plane up. How did it fly 500 miles an hour through the thickest part of our atmosphere, which is right down at ground level, or in the case of the towers, 800 feet altitude? How is 500 miles an hour possible? You should probably check with Boeing on that, because I know you said a while ago to Dino, no, I know, but you don't know that the thickness, that the density of the atmosphere down here on the ground prevents a behemoth like an airliner from going 500 miles an hour. And you say Building 7 is irrelevant. And how do you address the Commission's statement that the funding for 9/11 is of no significance?
Okay, well, first of all, how you accelerate a plane to that speed is you take it up to a higher altitude first.
And you come down and it stops going that fast.
Hold on.
The atmosphere
Dave.
will not allow it to go that fast down here on the ground.
It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It's air.
Oh, ask Boeing. Check it out. You don't know. You do not know. You are not as knowledgeable as you think you are about these things.
Okay.
Guaranteed, buddy. Guaranteed.
Would you like me to answer the question, or do you want to just talk?
I'd like to hear you shill your way into an answer. Sure.
It's very simple. You take you hijack the airplane at a higher altitude. You extend the leading edge slats. You pull the throttle all the way forward. You dive the plane down into the building, and you're going probably pretty damn close to the speed of sound.
And when it hits the thicker atmosphere, it slows down, buddy. The engines would be ripped off by the atmosphere. The air would rip the engines and the wings off at 500 miles an hour. You think you know, but you don't.
Dave, one person at a time. One person at a time. Okay, please.
These planes are designed to take incredible stress loads far higher than they're ever exposed to at any normal kind of operational envelope. They are designed, what we used to call it at Boeing was fail-safe. That means every piece of structure on that aircraft is twice as strong as it needs to be. Now, imagine if something happened on the airplane that caused the throttle to be stuck open and it to lose altitude and fly down. Do you think the plane's just going to fall apart in midair? Please show me an example of a plane ever doing that.
Hey, Mara, listen. Let me jump in here. Boeing has already contradicted you when they reported that no, the plane could not have flown 500 miles an hour at ground level. Boeing actually said that.
I'd love to see the documentation on that, and please don't.
Yeah.
Please don't.
And you can find it. You can find it.
Please do not.
You can find it. Just dig for it, buddy, because you don't care. All you want to do is believe the official conspiracy theory.
No,
that's it.
I don't want to believe it. I'm just telling you what I know about airplanes. And the
you
fact
do not know what you think you know about airplanes.
Then show me the documentation.
You can dig it up for yourself. It's online.
Yeah. Okay,
it's
right.
online.
On some YouTube video by some Jew.
No, it's from Boeing, man. It's from Boeing.
Okay, where?
Look at the specifications of the plane's flight. I swear, man, a few years ago, someone had already done this research, and it was already posted, and it's well known. These planes do not fly 500 miles an hour down here close to the ground. He would rip the engines off. The engines intake air at a specific air speed. Once they hit the thicker air, that intake would kill the engine. It does not fly 500 miles an hour at 800 feet altitude. You don't know what you think you know. You sound smart, but you're not.
Hey, Dave. Thank you for the call. Hey, all right, my brother. I'll talk to you after the show. That's Dave Matherly, researcher. He's a researcher here in town. Really cool guy. Good graphics guy. So anyway, Mike, that's one of the things. This is what is so disturbing about all of the events of 9/11 is you're going to have people go out and research and look into and try to pick all of this stuff apart. And it's one bullet after another that gets loaded into the gun, and they go, see, well, what about this? What about this? And it's a whole series of different things that add up to some pretty crazy stuff. My view is a bunch of crazies jumped into planes, hijacked them, took control of the planes. That's terrorists. Yes, that's my belief. But I feel like with all the other evidence that has been brought forward, that our government probably knew about it. And that's the scarier part, and didn't do anything about it. And that's what bothers me. And were they so motivated to go and cause a war and go make some money for Halliburton and other companies?
It wasn't Halliburton. Okay, let's go there a second. Let me just finish with a couple pieces. I'm with you completely on this. What I'm trying to get across to people is that you can have a conspiracy, and there's some possibility of a conspiracy behind it, but you don't have to go to these ridiculous extremes of claiming. I'm sorry, what, Jim?
That wasn't me. I brought in another caller.
No, that was me, Grant. It was a total conspiracy, Bara. Go ahead.
Okay. Hey,
Bill, look, building number 7, WTC-1 basically fell on top of it. If you look at the pictures, they're right next to each other in the square. Some very, very hot molten, or I don't want to use that word, molten, very, very hot metal and pieces of debris got into building number 7. There are videos online which you can see of building number 7 burning. There was a big gash on building number 7. There are photographs of that, and the thing collapsed from the back and went down. There's no evidence of any demolition or explosions on any of these buildings. And what, again, it's like the South Park episode where, there's a big whole fake thing, and Cartman is chasing all this stuff around and trying to blame everybody for it, and they end up in the Oval Office, and Bush says, well, it really wasn't a conspiracy, and they said, well, who did 9/11? And he said, well, a bunch of pissed off Muslims. And so the guy says, well, why do you tell the truth then? And he said, well, we do, but 25% of the people out there are retards. So we have to make them think we're all knowing and all powerful and in control of everything. The fact is that, look, if the government pulled off 9/11, it would be the first competent thing.
Oh, did I lose you, Mike?
The U.S. government has done since we landed on the moon.
I think we lost you for a quick second. Hey, Grant, do you have a question really quick for Mike?
Yeah. No,
okay. I've got Grant.
I don't have a question. I was just wondering if Mike Bara was a total shill for the government, because everything coming out of your mouth is right out of the book.
Okay, all right. Hey, Grant.
Cheney and Bush. It blows me away. And I had to call back and say, wow, Mr. Bara, I drove around the Pentagon. There was no plane there. It was blown up.
It was inside the building, sir. It was inside the building. And there are photographs and videos of debris from an American Airlines plane sitting in the gas right outside the building.
I'm one of the witnesses. They didn't cap. Sorry. Good night.
So they faked all the pictures then, too? Those are all fake news pictures?
Well, why don't you read some of the inside accounts from some of the employees, one of which actually brought her baby, put it under the desk. when she turned on her computer, the building blew up. She walked out with her baby and one shoe, and was a noted expert in military training. Otherwise, she said she smelled nothing. It smelled like fuel. It was all explosives as far as she was concerned. What it smelled like. She walked out of the building, noticed there was no plane there. And EMS.
And how do you explain all the pictures of 757 parts in and around the Pentagon, sir?
Well, there are plenty of bands around with
757 parts. I helped design some of those parts.
Okay. Okay, listen, I'm going to jump in.
All I know is I didn't go to work that day. It was my day off. I usually take the metro right under the Pentagon. And so I heard the explosion, felt it in my feet, walked out, looked, there was black smoke coming up. A couple hours later, we took a car, drove around as close as we could, 200 yards from the building. There was no plane there. And we were like, oh, wow, there's no plane. So
that's because it disintegrated.
Yeah.
That's because it disintegrated, sir.
Well, I didn't think about it until 10 years later, Mr. Bara, when I started watching videos of the few frames that were left to the public. And I thought, you know what? That just doesn't match. And I didn't think about it for 10 years because I was so depressed about the whole thing. And then I started getting into researching. And the fact of the matter was, I wish I had taken video on my phone that day because there were so many indiscrepancies. And Mr. Cheney saying, stand down, is just too much.
Well,
really, what?
Well, let me jump in.
What's the proof that Dick Cheney said stand down? Where's that evidence? Maybe it's true. I don't know, but what's the evidence of that?
Thank you. There's not. Sidestepping everything, just like
that's what I thought.
Just like a bought boy, and it drives me crazy listening to you.
Well, but the thing is, hold on. Let me jump in. Grant, Mike, and Grant.
I love that. That'd be great.
Mike and Grant, listen to me. It's still my show. So just let me say this. It's everybody's.
When I saw those buildings fall, when I watched it live on TV, that was a demolition. There was no question in my mind.
It's all about Grant. It's 9/11 is passionate for everybody, and we all have our opinions. None of us, not Mike Bara, not Jimmy Church, not Grant, nobody knows the truth. Nobody does. We don't. We can only gather our information and listen to everybody, have an open forum like we are doing here. That's what it's about. Mike's not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm not. We don't know. We honestly, the amount of information that has flooded out post 9/11 has been put out there, and lack of information has been put out there to confuse all of us. And the fact that we went into a false war with Iraq over this mess, all of that was false. You don't know what to believe. Grant.
Well, no, Jimmy. No, wait a minute.
You're absolutely right.
But,
and Jimmy and Mr. Bara, I
wait a minute. I would take.
I wanted to say that I'm just referring to the Pentagon. I hate to hear when everyone talks about the Pentagon being hit, because I can tell you from an eyewitness account that it was not hit by an airliner.
Okay. Hey, Grant.
And that is my belief, and I'll go to my
grave. You do not have you are not an eyewitness account. You heard the explosion and you went outside. The plane had already hit. There are dozens of eyewitnesses. You can go see them on
plane
YouTube.
wreck.
People who saw the plane fly into the building. They saw it. They saw a plane fly into the Pentagon.
Green. It was not torn up. There were no.
Well, that's not true because there are pictures showing debris outside the Pentagon.
Go sell your book.
Debris is going to be inside the Pentagon, not outside the Pentagon. It's going to be inside it.
Mike, I know you're passionate, man. Calm down just a little bit. Just calm down. Take a deep breath.
I mean, how many times can people say things that are simply not true? And I can't. I mean, again, he's not an eyewitness. You know, he's not. That's like me hearing a car crash and walking up the street and claiming I'm an eyewitness to the car crash. No, I'm not.
Okay, I'll bring in. Let's bring in another caller. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black with Jimmy Church. Mike Bara is going to hang for a minute.
I'm debating every caller. Okay.
Who's calling?
Oh God. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Who's calling?
Hey, this is Jim in Virginia.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Listen to the show. It's pretty passionate.
9/11's passionate for everybody. And I mean, you heard me at the front of the show. I almost started crying. Okay. It is an emotional time for all of us. And like I said, and I really mean this, nobody, not even Mike, no, we all don't know. We just don't know the truth. We don't. When you look at the facts, the way that I look at them, I still firmly believe that some crazy dudes hijacked a plane. That's what I feel. And
there's no doubt that crazy dudes hijacked the plane.
But I think the government knew what was happening in advance. I think Mike has left or was dropped. I don't know, but with okay, Mike's back. Mike's back with us. Is this when you look at just the black and white, and Mike is an engineer, he worked for Boeing, and when you look at the black and white like an engineer does, and many engineers have looked at this with a different opinion of Mike, and have said that structurally the building should have stood. I don't know. But when you look at things in a black and white world, that's Mike's view, and he's entitled to that.
Well, no, wait a minute, Jimmy. What I will say about that is that I don't see how anybody can reach that conclusion when nothing like this had ever happened before. Nothing like.
Right, but you remember. But let me say this.
So to be able to say those buildings should have stood up, nothing like this had ever happened before. Nobody. Now we know a lot more about these kinds of things than we did when it happened.
Sure, but do you remember right after that plane? A twin-engine Cessna or something, some plane in Milan, in Italy, crashed into that high tower and burned for like 2 or 3 days. It's still standing. You know,
engine Cessna. Twin-engine Cessna probably not traveling 500 miles an hour and probably didn't do any real major structural damage to the building.
I understand that, but I'm just saying we see something like that happen. The first interstate building down here in L.A. In the 80s, that caught fire. High rise, didn't fall to the ground, and the thing is, that building in Milan, the first interstate building down here in Los Angeles, I'm just saying they weren't the Twin Towers. I personally have been to the top of the Twin Towers and to the observation deck. Those were huge, humongous, solid buildings. And I can't see anything. I just can't. I can't see anything bringing them down. And that's the part where I just step back and go, maybe there's something to this. I walked through the lobby of which one, World Trade Center 1 or 2, I don't remember. But I went into that lobby and saw the immensity of those buildings. They were just huge, huge buildings. I can't see anything bringing them down. Not a 757 or anything else, or demolition for that matter. Like you were saying about the Pentagon, I mean, the World Trade Centers were built like that. I mean, some solid stuff. And I just can't see anything. I was shocked. To see those come down that day. It just didn't make any sense. It didn't compute in my brain that they came down at all. I thought that they would stand.
Well, I remember at the time, you know, when I saw the gashes in the side of the buildings, I told
Mike,
my wife,
Mike, you keep breaking up. I don't know why.
Those buildings are going to collapse. They're going to come down. And so,
Mike, you've got...
Yeah, I got a lot of interference. You guys are really breaking up too.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
Let's reset it. Hey, Jim.
I'd make a point. I just want to make a point that, I'll quote George Orwell, that, during times of universal deceit, the telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. So we have to think about that a little bit. And I don't know how familiar you are with David Icke and his thoughts on the 9/11 conspiracy and how it brings us into a fear, into a lower vibrational state in order to really just bring us into a state of fear. And so when we're in a state of fear, we tend to just give in to what happened. Hijackers took over planes and crashed them into buildings. And now we have to go into Afghanistan and find these men in a cave. And what I find real interesting is that the FBI never had bin Laden on the top list for the attacks. That he was like the number one terrorist, but it wasn't for the 9/11 attack.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, Jim, really quick. What do you think there was something behind 9/11?
Well, what I found real interesting, I saw this on YouTube. It's this historian, Fritz Springmeier, and he did a speaking tour. He wrote a book called The Bloodlines of the Illuminati, and he did a speaking tour a little while ago about 9/11 and the occult symbolism behind 9/11. And you could just go to YouTube and type Fritz Springmeier in and 9/11 and it'll all pop up. And watching that really makes you think that all they did with the Twin Towers and the Solomon Building and the name of the flights being Flight 11, the amount of passengers and crew on all these occult symbols with the numbers, all have to do with high occult symbolism. And when you really, if you really understand the Illuminati and those sorts of things, it really starts to make sense that it was a blood sacrifice on 9/11. People died, and people say, "Oh, well, how could the government do this?"
That's right.
The government can't even get a website working. Well, let me put it this way: you have illegal, you have criminal elements within the government that put this together. George Bush didn't push the plunger down. Dick Cheney didn't push the plunger down and blow up the towers. But there are criminal elements within the government that allowed it to happen. They allowed the terrorists to do it. They had plenty of warnings beforehand. The CIA, the FBI, they all knew it was going to happen, and they let it happen. How in the world could you have these terrorists happen to be flying these planes on the same exact day that Northcom or NORAD, one of the two, had a training, program or whatever. They were doing training with the same exact scenario. That's just a coincidence that NORAD was doing a similar training, and that's when there was actual footage of the people saying, "Is this real or is this part of the training?" Because they thought it was fake. They thought, okay, well, this can't be real because we're running a training for this right now, so we don't know if this is live or not.
Right.
So when you have things like that going on, it makes you think, yeah, the buildings fell down. I mean, obviously it happened. It's a conspiracy of some sort. But it's a matter of trying to connect the dots. And when you look into the occult symbolism and you look into all these things I'm talking about, it makes you really think, wow. And then you hear about Dr. Judy Wood. She has the science to back up this stuff, how the buildings fell, how it was created into dust, all this crazy stuff. Dr. Judy Wood is just amazing what she did. And that kind of ties all this together. It's like, wow, it's really just, they did this on purpose. And how'd they pull this off? Well, we were able to land on the moon, like you said earlier. There's a lot of things we've been able to do. I mean, we know that the government's 40, 50 years ahead of us in the technology. Planes they had been using forever. Those planes that hit the towers and they could have been remotely controlled. There's reports of those planes, and then you have George W. Bush on 9/12 saying that planes can be remotely controlled.
Yeah, well,
YouTube.
like I've said, Jim, and thank you for the phone call, by the way. All great points. Thank you for the phone call.
Good one.
Yeah, you too. Mike, back to my point. When you look at history, just look at history. Let's just look at the Lusitania or any other excuses that were used to provoke the other side and poke somebody in the eye enough to get them to go to war. There has been no shortage of real bad morals when it comes to stuff like this and who's motivated. Is it from the top? Is it from the White House on down? Is it from the military itself? We don't know any, but history has certainly proven so many things time and time again, where when 9/11 happens, now we have to throw up our hands and go, it could be. It could be another example of that. Is it horrific? Yeah, there's plenty of evidence of bad things in the past. Really, really bad things that have caused different wars for whatever reasons. And usually it's money. But when 9/11 happens, every conspiracy guy out there now has a reason to go and make a video and go and say, look, it's our government. Once again, they knew about it. And you're going to be able to dig into it and find examples of and evidence that they did know about it in advance. And that's my point.
You talking to me, Jimmy?
Yes, I am, directly.
Oh,
yes.
okay. And am I still breaking up? Because you're still breaking up. I can hear you, but am I clear here?
Yeah, you're clear. You're clear.
Okay. Somebody said when I raise my voice, it cuts out, so I'll try to avoid doing that.
Just calm.
the thing is, I'm not arguing there's not a conspiracy around the event of 9/11. What I'm arguing about is these urban myths that have been created, that a plane did not hit the Pentagon, that planes, jetliners, striking skyscrapers, the two biggest skyscrapers in the world, at 500 miles an hour, and severing their structural supports on three sides is not going to bring the buildings down. I'm arguing that building number 7 certainly got hit by debris from World Trade Center 1, that it started fires in the building, which weakened that building, and it came down. There's no evidence at all of any explosive demolition of any of those buildings. So those are the things I'm arguing about. And people say that there's no wreckage of Flight 93. And again, I just looked at a bunch of pictures of wreckage that they dug up from that aircraft that is entirely consistent with planes that I worked on. So those are the parts that I'm saying are nonsense.
All right,
Now, when you want to talk about bigger conspiracy theories, I am a conspiracy theorist, and certainly I can give you reasons you probably never thought of for why 9/11 would make sense. But why it would make sense as something that would be pulled off for very specific reasons. But it's like that they could do that just as easily by flying planes into buildings.
I've just brought in another caller. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Carlos, Texas.
I'm sorry?
Carlos from Texas.
Hey, Carlos from Texas. How are you tonight? Say hi to Mike Bara.
Hi, Mike.
What have you got for us tonight, Carlos?
Hi, Carlos.
Well, when September 11th, at that time I was on duty. I was stationed in Fort Benning, Georgia at the time. And I was coming on duty at the time that all this shit was going on. Put it this way, if you look at a bunch of most grim people in the world was us at the time when we all got stuck to the TV to watch what's going on. We knew we were going to go to war, after that. If it was a conspiracy or not, who knows? Who cares? The thing is, it did happen. Many of my brothers and sisters died in the process for liberty. And uproar, pretty much. I personally believe that we went to war for make the rich richer and the poor poorer. You know, we went to pretty much destabilize the area of the world where pretty much it was already destable as it was. And by taking out Saddam, pretty much what we did was pretty much screw everything. We screwed everything up. Because, yeah, he was, you know, you can call him whatever he was, just crazy, fanatic, this, that, so forth and so on. But at least he kept that area pretty much in control.
Thank you for the call. Hey, Carlos, thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now that's where, Mike, that's exactly where I'm coming from. When you look at the Iraq happening for absolutely no reason, caught in a bunch of stupid lies with the CIA and Colin Powell going in front of the United Nations with that vial of, what was it, anthrax or nuclear plutonium or whatever it was, or both, and started all of, and then for the massive cleanup, infrastructure, rebuild the construction and everything else. It just smelled like money from the word go. And I know, Mike, you felt the same way. There's no way you could not.
Well, I will say this. I mean, there are some things that I think people should think about with regards to Iraq. Number one, I think they clearly did have weapons of mass destruction. That was well established beforehand. And the pictures that Colin Powell showed at the UN, where he showed the chemical weapons facilities, where the trucks, the UN inspectors are scheduled to come on, Thursday, and on Wednesday the trucks pull up to the buildings and they're loaded up, and then they drive away, and then the UN inspectors come in on Thursday and make their inspection, and then they leave, and then on Friday the trucks come back and offload everything they had in there. And all I want to know is, for the people who say there were no WMDs, no chemical weapons, what do you think were in those trucks? I mean, maybe the Republican Guard's weekly supply of Krispy Kremes were being delivered. I mean, what do you think was in those trucks? There were very credible reports that they were conducting chemical weapons experiments. They did find various facilities that had the capability of doing this stuff. And then, of course, right before the war happened, what people forget is that there were, again, credible intelligence reports that all this stuff was being trucked across the highway from Iraq to Syria, because Assad and Saddam were both members of the Ba'ath Party, the same neo-fascist political party. Mm-hmm. And the rumor at that time was that those chemical weapons were then taken and buried in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. That's where they were stored. So the U.S. invades Iraq. We never find any of the chemical weapons we're looking for, or at least not the specific ones that we've been told we were looking for. And then in 2005, I believe, or early 2006, what did the Israelis do? Do you remember what they did? They invaded Lebanon. Where did they go? They went straight up to the Bekaa Valley. They held their positions for several days, and then they retreated back to Iraq. What do you think the Israelis were doing in the Bekaa Valley? They were obviously knew that the chemical weapons were there, and before the Syrians could distribute them to anybody else, they went in and took them. Now, this is the thing. People are so focused on hating George W. Bush and Dick Cheney that they're not thinking about the possibility that there really were chemical weapons, that the reports were credible, and that these other stories are actually true. It's like, to me, that stuff all made sense. When the Israelis invaded, I said, because I remembered the intelligence reports, I said, I bet they're going to stop in the Bekaa Valley, and that's where they're going to go. That's exactly what they did. They stayed there for 2 or 3 days. They dug the whole place up. They got all the chemical weapons to make sure they could not be fired into Israel, and then they went back to Israel. So, again, Jimmy, there's a lot of things that happened that I think were true. I mean, those satellite pictures, as far as I know, have never been refuted as being authentic photos of the trucks coming and going from these suspected chemical weapons facilities. So if there were no chemical weapons, if that was all just made up by Bush and Cheney, then what was in those trucks?
Exactly. And then this is where I put the brakes. I pumped the brakes on your statement, which is okay. Hold on.
Well, I just want to say one more thing before you do that, which does not mean that there aren't other economic reasons for invading Iraq. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, it's called oil. But
no, it's not oil.
Is this the one thing for Cheney and Colin Powell and the White House and for Bush, the one thing that they needed was one chemical weapon, one warhead, one missile that was armed. How about a vial, a flask?
Yeah.
Anything. And they would have brought that forward in a New York second to show it to the world. And they didn't, and they couldn't because it wasn't there. I doubt very seriously that the Iraqi government could deceive us enough to run trucks across the border, to burn it, to get rid of it. Any little piece of shred of evidence, a swab of something, nothing was presented and brought forward. I am here to say that I really feel that Saddam was just completely rooked. And I'm not saying he was a good guy. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't think it was there. We would have, no matter how tiny that, I'm talking about molecules of evidence, you would have, Cheney would have paraded that in front of every news camera that he could have, and because it wasn't there. And we had hundreds of thousands of troops going across that country. Every satellite was focused. And nothing was proven, nothing at all, ever. Nothing, zilch, nada. Even you just said that there was nothing there. I to the Becca Valley? Possibly, sure. Could it have possibly been put into trucks and trucked around? I read all those books about that, and they were scary books. Mobile chemical labs. Now that's a conspiracy that's even greater than the conspiracy that we're presenting. Could little Iraq actually pull all of that off? I say absolutely not. There was nothing there to begin with.
So you're saying that they lied about the fact that there were chemical weapons.
Of course they did.
They were devious enough. They were devious enough to lie about the fact that there were chemical weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Are you talking about Iraq? Hold on.
Enough, I'm talking about Bush and Cheney.
Okay.
Devious, and Colin Powell and all the other people that would have to be part of the conspiracy. Devious enough to pull off 9/11 to give them the pretext of going to war with Iraq. Devious enough to do all this, but they weren't devious enough to come up with some fake chemical weapon stuff that they planted there. Jim?
Yeah, and the reason
that's what you're saying?
Because yes, and I'll tell you why. Because they were just caught. They could not get caught a second time. They were caught with that fake letter from the CIA that the CIA generated that Saddam was trying to get plutonium and uranium out of Africa. That was a fake document that they presented to the British, and the British called them out. And so when you get caught with that, Colin Powell just went in front of the United Nations and paraded those vials around and got caught with that. They couldn't go back to that well a second or third time. They couldn't do it. They had to produce the real goods. They couldn't continue the charade, Mike.
Well, I think it's far more likely that when Bush was told by Bill Clinton's CIA director, who he retained, I forget the guy's name at this time, that it was a slam dunk that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. I think he believed it. I think when he saw the trucks in the satellite photos loading and unloading whatever they were unloading from those chemical weapons facilities, I think he believed it. I think when the reports leaked out that they were moving that stuff into Syria, that's probably what really happened. Yep. And the Israelis went up and cleaned out the hornet's nest later on. And I think that we just wanted to make sure there was nothing there. I think it's more likely that they were telling the truth, that they believed that there were chemical weapons there.
I don't doubt for a second, Mike, that Cheney, Colin Powell, and the rest of the chiefs of staff thought that they were going to go in 100% and find chemical weapons or WMDs. They thought that. They were expecting that. That's why they lied in the first place, because they knew that they were going to go in. They believed with 100% certainty that they were going to go in and find them, but they didn't. See, that's the thing. That's.
Yeah. Okay, Jim. And I don't know that it's established that the whole Iranian yellow cake thing was false. I don't believe that's an established fact. I mean, there's a lot of things that were said about the war that I'm not sure in terms of the history,
right,
that was actually true. So, I mean, I've heard those stories, but I also see a lot of YouTube videos about 9/11, about a plane not hitting the Pentagon, that I think are complete nonsense too.
See that?
So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, look, this is supposed to be a call-in show for your listeners. Maybe we should let your listeners take back over. I didn't really mean to come in and take the show over. I just think that, for my mind, it's like, it's pretty clear that like the South Park episode says, a bunch of pissed off Muslims flew airplanes into buildings, and that's what happened on 9/11.
I firmly believe that 100%, Mike, and that's where you and I are on the same page.
And the bigger conspiracy is something we could talk about, any.
Hey, Mike, all the best, my brother, all the best. Thank you for coming on and taking it on the chin, man.
Well, and by the way, I am not receiving funds from the government. God, I wish I was. I could use them. So,
Hey, split them with me, okay?
Yeah.
I'll talk to you, Mike. Thank you,
All right,
man.
bye.
All the best. Okay, let's just jump right into the next call. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to go to the top of the list. I'm going to go to the top here. It is *6. You've been waiting.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Oh, I'm ready to buckle up. I'm a good pilot. Let's see if we can straighten this mess out.
Give it your best shot there, *6.
I guarantee it's going to be the best one I've got. Hey, how are you tonight?
Well, you can see everybody's passionate about 9/11, including myself, and and I appreciate.
That's how come I have to bring in some pink cotton and wrap it around everybody so we can just kind of calm down and get through this on an intellectual level.
Well, give it, like I said, give us your best shot. Swing the bat.
Okay, here she comes. The last time I flew a UFO, I learned one thing about the atmosphere. Things crash, and everybody has a different perspective. Now, you, sir, have yours, and the callers have theirs. This is the difference between linear thinking and good old-fashioned nonlinear thinking. But it makes sense to some and it doesn't make sense to others. However, I know we all like to use our visual. YouTube kind of wins in this particular argument. There's been a lot of YouTubers, but there's two particular YouTubes out there that the people should be paying attention to and maybe missed. And I will just say it this way. I'm sure that the listeners know more about these two YouTubes than I do. One was made by the retired gentleman from the CIA that was in charge at the time. And he clearly says, I think the typical phrase that he used all the time was connecting the dots. Do you recall that, Jimmy? That
yes, I do.
YouTube?
I do.
Okay, now when you start connecting the dots the way he did, you're coming up with the logic or the nonlinear approach and what this gentleman's arguing about. I'm sure he's a fine engineer. I'm sure he's never flown one. But nevertheless, that is exactly connecting the dots. Now, strange enough, in November of this last year, there was another Connect the Dot YouTube. That was that mysterious one and only camera that the conspiracy folks couldn't shut off. And they heard the recording of building number 7. Now, the key word that was recorded on this one videotape one security camera out of the hundreds that disappeared, one, they screwed up. And there's one recorded word. Here's the last dot. Pull it.
Right.
Well, that is a demo call. Every idiot knows that. We want to use the words idiots and this and that. Well, gentlemen, those two YouTubes are all you need. The logic, take it from there. The whole point is you're not wrong, sir. You're doing a good job, but you don't have to be so defensive. I'm sure you know your stuff. And the callers, you don't have to be so aggressive. I'm sure you know your stuff. But you both got different perspectives. Now, let me give a summation of those two YouTubes. The number one dot that the CIA retired gentleman was trying to tell you was that the first engine was just an engine. There was no wings, no nothing until the next time he saw it. There's wings and everything. Now, that's a dot.
Yes.
You may have been. Now, if you sit there and you think about conspiracy theories, well, forget that stuff. We can do anything, and we do. We're the biggest illusionists on earth. The United States government can pull off any movie. They've been doing it for decades. Ask Eisenhower. So the key thing here is, which illusion were you subject to? The 757? Boy, God, you did see one, didn't you? Or did you? You see, that's how good we are. And we've been that good for a long time. In fact, tonight's show could be an illusion. I think we're all invisible. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Star 6. That's what I'm talking about. Star 6. Can I take... I have not taken a break in 2.5 hours. I'm going to take a break, and I will say this really quick. This is KJCR, Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm going to continue the calls. They're coming in now. Just settle down. Be patient. Let me take a couple minutes here. Clear my head. At J Church Radio is what you want to do. Hashtag DM Radio Net. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Are you afraid of the dark? Don't move. Don't touch that mouse. You are listening to Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
My life is complete. My evening is complete. Method is in the house. Method. How you doing, everybody? 9/11, Fader Nights. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Love the passion tonight and keep bringing it. I've cleared out the phone lines. Let's start back at zero. I couldn't keep up. So there they are. The phone lines are wide open. 323-825-5045. If you want to Skype in, you can. Fade to Black 14. All lowercase, no spaces. Let's just keep it going. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Steve from Bluefield.
Steve. It's a complete evening. I got you and Method at the same time. How are you tonight, my brother?
Oh, I'm doing great, Jimmy. Okay, here we go.
Okay, calm down. Take a deep breath, Steve.
Everyone, calm down. Let's take a deep breath. At the end of the day, Jimmy, at the end of the day, whether planes flew in to the World Trade Centers, whether it was rockets, whether one flew into the Pentagon, whatever. We can't change it. We can't turn it around. It happened. But what we do have to look at, and I wish everyone that's so passionate about this subject would be so passionate and put that passion toward realizing that this government that we live under has been duping us for 200 years. And as a public, we still allow this shit to go on.
Right.
And we don't, the people won't stand up to help change it. It's just like, oh, something else happened. Well, maybe we'll fix it next time.
You know,
it's just not going to happen.
You know what's
it kills me.
What's funny is this: every election year, every 4 years, and certainly with Obama. I mean, Obama was the first guy to come along in a long time that we thought. I mean, we elected him. That okay, here's a guy that's saying change. And let's face it, he was black and different, and he was going to go in and wrestle control of Washington. But I think the same thing happened with Clinton. It happened with Jimmy Carter. It happened with so many. Reagan wanted the presidency for so long and ran, governor of California. And they get to Washington and they find out that they don't have control of anything. And the status quo moves forward in Washington. And it's the change. I don't know. I don't know who could be elected that would go in and just whip this around. I don't know. It just seems like there is somebody waiting in the Oval Office. You go in, you sit down, and you're now the president. You sit down, and you find out that it ain't about you. There's somebody there that's telling you what to do, and you have no control. And they have
no control.
Yeah, I don't know why. I really don't. None of us do. All of us as American citizens, we sit around and we watch it roll by. Every election cycle, it's the same thing. Nothing changes. And certainly you can see Obama just threw up his hands and was just like, well, okay, I'm just along for the ride like everybody else.
Yeah, this is how I see it happen. You get the president gets inaugurated, and then he takes this nice little walk down the avenue and waves to everybody. And then when he gets back to the Oval Office, it's just like a scene out of Godfather. There's a cut off horse's head on the top of his desk.
Yep.
With a nice little note beside it saying, "You're going to play ball."
There was one thing I wanted to bring up earlier, and I'm glad you're here. I didn't manage to bring this up with Mike or any other caller. I personally, in Las Vegas, saw them bring down the Aladdin, right? Controlled demolition.
Right.
Now, I was on the 23rd floor in a nice suite at Caesar's Palace, directly across the street, corner suite. I invited up to my room probably 30, maybe 40 people. It was a big suite. We took all of the couches, there was like 3 in the suite, spun everything around and set it up stadium style, arena style, facing out the corner windows overlooking the Aladdin. Room service done. We are ready to go. You've never heard of Mackey consoles. I don't know, Mackey, the boards, Mackey. Steve Mackey Greg Mackey was in the room with me. We're all videotaping. Again, 30 or 40 people. Now, this is the thing. The Aladdin, which was directly across the street, I believe was 11, 12, 13 stories tall. And it was a big hotel. And we've all heard of the Aladdin, right? Okay, so anyway, I watched that building blow up. Now, when they blew it up, the dust and everything that happened, but clouded the street. But the building itself, it was not like what you see in the Twin Towers coming down or any other demolition that you've ever seen. Okay? I'm telling you what I saw with my own 2 eyes, which was that building went down in a second. A second, not slow motion. That's what you see. They slow it down so you can see it. It vaporized. It was gone. And when, I mean, it happened so fast that if I would not have been looking out the window, I would have literally missed it. It happened that quick. Now, this is back to my point. At the end, when all of the concrete dust and everything, there was tens of thousands of people on Las Vegas Boulevard. It was a big party. There were bands playing, helicopters all over the place, videotaping. And when the dust finally cleared, about an hour later, and I'm not kidding about that, an hour later, where you could kind of, it was perfect. There was a square there. There was no debris that fell outside of the area. There was nothing. I was expecting the opposite of what I was seeing. I was like, holy crap, that entire building, there was not a pile of rubble there. I want to explain. There was not a pile of stuff. It was gone. It was like it was an empty field. And I'm like, how does that happen? It dissolved into itself and went into a pile of dust in the middle of the thing. They had all of these literally hundreds of trucks that were parked around, and they started digging up the debris and putting it on. They disappeared. But there was nothing there. So when I talk about Building 7 and it being affected by, you know, the debris from the two towers, and that's how I'm not buying into that, because right next to the Aladdin was another hotel. And on the other side of the Aladdin was another hotel. There were people in the streets right in front of the Aladdin. Nobody was affected by it. There were bands on stages. There was people all over the place, and they brought down this huge building, and nobody died. Nobody was hit by shrapnel. Nobody was hit by flying concrete. And it was brought down into a complete, clean, deliberate pile. And so when I look at the way that the Twin Towers came down, they came down in the same fashion. I'm not saying they were brought down deliberately. That's not my point. But my point is they came down clean. And there were no other buildings that were affected all the way around it. For some reason, Building 7 went down too. And I'm not buying into that. I have issues with that. I really, really do.
The whole thing stinks from the word go. You know, period. At the time that it went down 9/11, you know, I was off that day, and just having to turn on the TV that morning and saw what was going on, and at the time my sister was working for the Pentagon, and you know, after a while, you know, then the plane struck the Pentagon, and I finally went in to work with my father, and our concern was trying to find my sister. Where's my sister at?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we finally get a hold of my sister several hours later, and just happened she was in San Diego at a naval base in San Diego. She wasn't even at the Pentagon. But once she got back to the Pentagon, you know, they had that. You couldn't get nowhere, even as a employee at the Pentagon. You couldn't get anywhere close to the scene at the Pentagon.
Well, Grant said he drove by it.
That's it. You could drive by it from the road, but you weren't going to get out and you know, even as you know, my sister told me, as an employee there, you know, with a top secret security badge, you couldn't get nowhere close to it from inside the building.
So what's your bottom line? By the way, I just brought in another caller, and you're on with us live. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
This is Bear from Santa Clara.
Hey, Bear.
And I had, nothing much. You know, my hat goes off to, you know, everyone that suffered any kind of losses or whatever in 9/11. But personal kind of funny story looking at it in the background is me and my wife were watching the 9/11 things and everything, and she had to go to work. And she got in her car, and she was going down the freeway, and all of a sudden there's a big bang, you know, from her car. And she thought, well, just after the towers, she thought, well, maybe somebody shot a bullet through her engine. Well, I told her to pull off the freeway and whatever, and I got in the car, and I went over there. excuse me, and it turned out what happened was a spark plug came loose out in the car, and it went and hit the inner fender and pulled the some spark plug wire. So I went and got a new spark plug wire and spark plug, put it in, and got her back on her way. But she wasn't taking that so well that day, to say the least. So, kind of want to interject a little bit of levity and all the trauma. So I hope that was okay.
Yeah, I totally understand. We were all on pins and needles, and then something like that happens at that moment with everything else. Yeah, you're immediately going to jump to something crazy, and it turned out to be nothing. Thanks for the call tonight, Bear.
Hey, no problem. And wheel bearing grease.
Thank you,
on your
Bear.
chair.
Have a good night, Bear.
Okay.
Have a good night.
You too, my friend.
All the best.
Good night.
Jimmy, is that chair still causing you issues?
Yeah, man. Can you believe it, man? And I just don't know what to do, man. I'm going to have to do some.
It's called go buy a new chair, Jimmy.
It's brand new. Brand new.
It's brand new, and it's causing you issues.
Yeah, it's because, I'm a fat white guy. I wear these things out. I don't know what to, see, this is the thing. In an office or something like that, you would never hear it. But this is a dead quiet, sealed, acoustically done studio. And so when I'm sitting in here, it is quiet. If I wasn't talking, you could hear absolutely everything. So the slightest squeak or anything, I hear people say things all the time that they hear stuff in the background. And it's funny because you would never hear it. Me clicking my fingernails or anything like that just comes through. This is a very sensitive microphone. So anyway, let's just, I've got calls lined up. Steve, stay with us, man. Don't go anywhere. Just stay with us.
Okay.
Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. You're with Steve with Bluefield and Jimmy Church. You're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Where are you calling from? You're live on Fade to Black. 3, 2, 1.
There's that dead air.
See, you know what it is? And I give everybody a little time because there's a 6 to 10 second delay that we run here at the studio. So somebody's listening to the radio in the background and they don't hear that they're live on the air yet instead of listening to the phone. Okay.
Well, that's what I don't understand, because when I call in, I hear your voice in.
Do you really? Okay, now you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
I'm here, Tony from Northern California.
Hey, Tony from Northern California. How are you tonight?
Oh, in the same bucket with everyone else, feeling the vibes of 13 years ago.
Yeah.
I think your show is amazing, and I just wanted to put these 2 cents in because I'm not very eloquent.
Okay, go ahead, Tony.
I think everybody should check out Frontline documentary called The Man Who Knew. And I don't care how many engineers you think a building can fall in free fall, or, twin towers that can come down from 2 planes. Watch the video and you'll understand people knew that stuff was going to go down.
Thank you.
And I want to say this guy's name, John O'Neill. He's a hero. He was trying to solve who was planning this. They knew people were planning something. I don't know how much they knew. Of course, none of us do, like you said. You're right. But you've got to be your head 30,000 feet below the ground, if it goes that far, to not realize that people in power in today's world with technology and the NSA, and they collected information. They knew since 1996 there was stuff happening, planning. So watch Frontline, The Man Who Knew. It's John O'Neill. He died in the towers. He was head of security. That day, he used to work for the FBI. People need to watch that.
Thank you, Tony. I wrote it down. The Man Who Knew. And I'm sure...
It will blow your mind. It will blow your mind how much... And people like Benny, who came out and they worked for the NSA, wrote books, got terrorized by the Men in Black. They were saying stuff way before this young whippersnapper in Russia, whatever his name is, I forgot. But I think that Snowden, there were people warning the government in the proper quote-unquote channels way before Snowden. Same information, and they were shut down. So people just need to wake up that, there's a whole nother stratosphere of power that is got its wet dreams, and we're down here on the ground like ants trying to live our daily lives. And it's a beautiful world, don't get me wrong, but there are people who are just lost, and they have a lot of power. It doesn't mean they're right or they're better than we are, but they're just lost, and they're as much afraid, I believe, as we are. And they're afraid of losing their money. They're afraid of losing their power, and they just get smaller with more fear, and they want us to feel fear. And we just need to love each other and not fear. That's all I got to say.
Thank you for the call, Tony. All the best. Everybody just started tweeting, by the way. That's a great documentary. Thank you, Tony, for the call. You still with me, Steve?
Yeah, buddy, I'm still here.
That was a good call.
That's a good call.
That was a real good call.
At the end of the day, we do not live in the world we think we live in, Jimmy.
This is it's such a fascinating way to look at things for all of us. When stuff happens, and it happens all the time, but when stuff happens and you just start to accumulate, what your brain is always learning. You're always watching television, you're reading newspapers, you're talking to your friends, you're communicating, your family, and you're learning and you're observing. And then as time goes on, you just start to figure out, just like I said on the show yesterday, whatever it is that you hear, flip it 180 degrees, and then you're closer to the truth. Whatever, it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
Hey, I've just brought in another phone call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black.
Hey, Jimmy.
Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Grant.
Hey, Grant, again?
Yeah, I've calmed down a bit, and I want to apologize.
Grant, you don't. No. You don't have to apologize. This show is about freedom of speech, freedom of thought, and freedom of learning, and family.
I'm loving what you're saying tonight, and I want to apologize for being so argumentative with Mr. Bara. Otherwise, it brings to mind who's the fellow you're talking to from Bluefield? I can't think.
Steve. He's on with us right now. Yeah, you can say hi to Steve.
He's on with us right now. Hey.
Yeah, how's it going, Grant?
Good. I love to hear you, man. I've heard you a couple of times before. And, coming back to base, one of my favorite books that I ever read in high school was called Shikasta by a woman named Doris Lessing. And she wrote about us being biological experiments on this planet. And I read that a couple of decades ago, and not to give away my age, but nonetheless, we were all biological experiments on this planet, like an ant farm, if you will. And, and there we are. But these little conspiracies and things.
Yeah, they're not little.
Confound us, don't they? They're conundrums. And
I want to say this to the both of you, because Cortana just tweeted. And by the way, if you have a question directly to me, you can do F2BQ, hashtag F2BQ. That goes straight to me. And she just popped me. She says, has anybody watched Zeitgeist? Have you guys seen that documentary?
Yeah, I've got it on my computer.
Steve, well, hold on. Steve, have you seen it?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen it. What did it say it was again?
Zeitgeist. Zeitgeist.
No, I have not seen it, Jimmy.
Okay. I'm just going to ask our Twitter family, the Fadernauts, somebody pop up a link to Zeitgeist for Steve and everybody else. It's
well, it speaks about 12 different origins from the origin of Ra and our worship of God and Jesus, and there are about 12 variations on that.
Actually, the film itself, yes, you're right. The first part of the film deals with religion, all forms of religion and how they tie into together. That's an eye opener. Then there's they cover 9/11, and then they also cover the Federal Reserve. And now the 9/11 stuff, okay, it's kind of rehashed. We've all seen these points of views. But the Federal Reserve, the religion section, that scares you. You start to watch that, and you almost feel like the Men in Black are going to show up at your house any second and pull the DVD and arrest you. You know, it's a pretty scary section of the video.
Right.
But the Federal Reserve,
Hamilton, that wanted to go against. Was it? I'm sorry to interrupt, but was it Hamilton that wanted the banks to take control initially?
Oh man, I would have to go back and watch. I think that they mainly
it was pre-Lincoln. Yeah.
Well, the founding fathers were all anti-federal control of the money. That all happened in the 1930s, I believe, when the Federal Reserve Bank was created. But anyway, Zeitgeist is a great documentary. It's been debunked, and that you actually go watch Zeitgeist Debunked. It's also just as interesting. The more that they debunk Zeitgeist, the parts that they're debunking and opening up your eyes to are just as strong as Zeitgeist itself. And
well, absolutely, Jimmy. That's what I thought, because I actually did see some debunking of Zeitgeist, and it actually, yeah,
it was just as strong.
I was just like, well, yeah.
Hey guys, I got to start clearing out the phone lines. I've got a bunch of other phone calls coming in, and
thanks for the time, Jimmy. Have a good night, buddy.
Hey, Steve, all the
Thanks
best.
for your perspective.
Thank you, Grant.
All right. Good night.
Good night. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Jeremy in Kansas.
Jeremy, how are you tonight?
What's up, brother? I'm doing good, man.
It's nice. It's a nice, passionate evening here on Fader Night and 9/11 and all of that. And you know what's funny is, and you're calling me, so it's about you. It's not about me. But as I sit as I sit and listen to everybody's views, there is no consensus, if you know what I mean. There is so much information out there about 9/11 that there's
sad too.
Yeah, it's look. If well, you know what, you called me. I'll let you talk. It's Fader Night. It's all about you, Jeremy. What have you got for me tonight?
Hey, first thing last night, and I want to talk about 9/11. But first thing last night, Phil Hendry. I used to listen to him. That guy's a genius.
Genius.
Oh man, he was. It took me a little while to figure out what was going on with this show. But when I finally did, I was like, wow, this guy is awesome.
You know what was?
He cracked me up so much back in the day.
I was such a fan of his. Well, still am.
God, me too, dude.
And to have him and his people go, he really wants to come on the show. He's a huge fan. I was like, what? Kidding. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Is it okay if he comes on tonight? Is it okay? Yeah, let's do that. I couldn't believe it. I was totally floored.
Did you, when you first listened to him, did you realize it was him doing all those things? No, did you think he had other people?
No, I told him last night. I brought in another call with this Jeremy. So I don't know who's joining us. We'll get to that in a second. But whoever it is, you need to turn down your radio.
Not me.
Okay.
Mine is not on.
Is it down? Is it okay? They turned it down. Good.
Okay.
I told Phil last night, the first time that I heard him, I was rolling up the freeway, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then you know what I did? This is what I did to Rita. I got her in the car one night, and I knew that he was coming on the air. So I just turned up the radio, and we're listening, and she was like, what? And I thought, I got her. Phil's got her. And and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't just my loopy brain buying into it, that it was that good. But yeah, absolutely. Phil Hendry. Yeah.
I love Megan. On the 9/11.
Yes.
Now, on 9/11, I was working a Cessna aircraft in Wichita, Kansas. And that is right next to McConnell Air Force Base. And
which, by the way, is one of the biggest Air Force bases I have ever seen in my life. That is humongo beyond humongo. It's another definition of big Air Force base.
Well, that's where they got Boeing, Cessna, and we got a lot of aircraft capability in Wichita.
Yep.
So anyway, we were high on the list back in the day, back in the Cold War days. We were high on the list. Wichita, Kansas was. Anyway, I can remember seeing a lot of aircraft coming into Wichita that, you know, we weren't used to seeing that much air traffic in Wichita. Landing out at mid-continent.
Now, this was on
from everywhere.
Jeremy, this was on 9/11.
This was on 9/11.
Gotcha.
And because I didn't know what was going on, I was down doing my job, and you know, I worked in a real loud area. And finally, a friend of mine came over and said, "Hey, have you heard the Twin Towers got hit?" And I said, "What?" And finally, I turned my radio on, and I was listening to it, and I was listening to Bob and Tom. Actually, that's where I got my news from that morning. Was from Bob and Tom.
Bob and Tom out of Indianapolis.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm listening to it, and when I finally start, you know, find out what's going on, you know, the towers are already collapsing at this point. I can remember the first thing I wanted to do. I just wanted to go home and be with my family. That's all I wanted to do. And I remember telling my boss, I said, if another plane goes down, I'm leaving. I'm going to be with my family. Because I didn't know. I don't think anybody knew what the scope of it was going to become that day.
Right.
And it was just a bad day for all of us. It's sad that we fight about this, you know, because whatever it was terrible. Whether it was us, them, it was just should have never happened. But it was just it's still sad, you know. It makes me sad to this day.
Yeah,
that did happen in our country.
You know,
in the United States, man.
No matter what, and you're absolutely right. Whether it was them, us, them or us, you know, we don't know. We don't know any of that. But no matter what, a lot of people lost their lives that night. And I remember
everything changed that day, dude.
Yep. I'll say this, and I just brought in another call, and then I have Les. Okay. I have Les the closer in the background. So Les, just stay with us for about a minute, and I'll get you into who's calling. Where are you calling from?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Jonas from Long Island. How are you?
Hey, Jonas from Long Island, 100-mile-an-hour king.
That's right, brother.
Yeah, listen, I want to say this. About a month after 9/11, I was working with U2, and U2 plays the Staples Center, and the security that was involved and everything. But I will never forget, they had a huge Megatron, what do you call the Jumbotron type setup on the back of the stage, and they ran all of the victims of 9/11, their names on the screen, and it took forever. And I remember them doing that, and the emotions that I had that day, and for a concert like that to have that moment, you know, and so yeah, it was just totally emotional. I was looking around. I was standing, you know who was standing next to me, to my left? Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise. And the two of us are watching, standing together. At the beginning of the concert, Tom and I had high-fived. And wow, this is great. At the end of the concert, when they were rolling those names, he was crying like a baby, you know, and we all were, and it still stays with us today.
Everybody's the same, man. When it comes to something like that, everybody's the same.
Yep.
And whether you're a movie star or not.
You just can't forget. You can't forget. Hey, Jonas, real quick, you're on with Jeremy, and I'm going to give you about a minute, and then I've got to pull in Les. He's the closer, as you know.
Yes, sir. I'm born and raised in New York, and actually at the time I was living on West Street, just 2 blocks south of World Trade Center. And I was on Long Island visiting family, and the one thing that really hit me, the island, you get a lot of people that commute into the city, and I can't tell you how many people I know personally who lost their lives that day. The train stations, man, you get these people that commute, just going to work, just going to do their regular thing every day, and there were so many cars that just stayed parked there, and they were people that were never coming home again.
And you knew it, and you knew it.
Jimmy, the one thing that stays with me is the smell that was in the air that just wafted from Manhattan towards the island, towards Jersey, and it just smelled like death.
Oh.
I'm getting choked up thinking about it. And just the one thing that I can say with the amount of information that's out there, we're all resourceful. I think we're all researchers, all of us that listen to this show, and we're all looking to further our education. There's so much information out there, but the one thing that we all can agree on is that something absolutely devastating and life-changing for every single American, and I think beyond that, world citizen, happened and changed us fundamentally. And it shook me to my core. I know it shook you to your core. I could hear it in your voice. And I think it got all of us, and I think that's why we get so passionate about it. And while I don't necessarily agree with what Mr. Bara had to say, I can appreciate his passion. It strikes a chord with us. It's something that really devastated a lot of people, and nobody's ever going to be the same after it.
Absolutely. Hey, Jonah, thank you, my brother. All right.
Thank you, brother. We'll talk soon.
You got it. And Jeremy, thank you for calling in tonight, man.
I love you, brother.
I love you too, man. Loving you right back. I'll talk to you. Thank you, Jeremy. All right, Les. Thank you, guys. Okay, Les, call in. Open up the phone lines. Okay, Les, I'm waiting for you. What a fantastic show. And again, it's emotional for all of us, and I'm glad that everybody was able to share tonight. And Jonah's right there. He's exactly right. It doesn't matter. Mike Bara has his everybody that called in tonight. Ken, Michael, Grant, Dino, Dave Matherly, passionate Dave, Jim in Virginia, Carlos, Steve, Bear called in, Tony from Northern Cal, and Grant called in a couple of times, and Jeremy and Jonah. It's very important for all of us to share and to talk and to consider memories, thoughts, ideas, and the passion. And, of course, everybody that lost their lives that day on September 11th. And so with that, how are you, Les?
Good, sir. How are you doing tonight? It's been a really hot-button topic tonight.
I didn't know how... it was, I expected everybody, a lot of phone calls and everything, but after 13 years, you can still tell after 13 years, this is just as important as it was 13 years ago. And I am very, very happy and impressed and everything else with everybody to just, nobody called in tonight going, whatever, man, we need to move on, whatever.
Exactly.
That's not, I'm very impressed with that. I mean, the passion is there and the memories.
Well, no matter who did it, whatever your opinion, people were killed that day. Families were destroyed, and the repercussions of that day got a lot more people killed. And we owe it to everyone who's died because of that day, our remembrance. We do.
Yep. And you know what? There's one other thing, Les, and you almost said it, so I'll say it for you.
Please do.
You never know what the day is going to bring. You never know what the next minute is going to bring. So whoever you fought with today, you just don't know what tomorrow's, you don't know what can happen. And so, you know what we do have? We have each other. Be nice.
That's right.
Be cool. Don't be a dick. Be nice. Say, and to everybody, because that's what we are here on this planet to have fun, to play sports, to go to work and hang out with our family. What we desire to do every day. That's why we create fun things, PlayStations and roller coasters and fast cars and cool music. It's so we can enjoy our time because it's very short. It's very short.
Enjoy our time with our families and our loved ones.
Exactly. On that roller coaster.
Yeah, it is a roller coaster sometimes.
Oh, man. So where were you that morning? We've got like 2 minutes left before you're going to do your job. Where were you that day?
I was off that day, and I just remember the chaos. I was actually, for some reason, I was watching TV that morning. They cut in, and I probably did what everybody else did that day, and that is I called my wife. Because you want to be in contact with your loved ones when something of that magnitude happens.
Right.
And a lot of the phone lines started dying because there was such an influx of calls.
Right.
It was crazy.
I got a hold of my mom that day, but I've never shared this story. Only my wife and my family knows about this, but I will share it with everybody just to let you know where I'm coming from. I get a hold of my mom, and my grandfather had a heart attack, and he was in the hospital. It was like his fourth heart attack. And, so he had a heart attack, and he's watching 9/11 happened from his hospital bed. And then the next day he died. They grounded all the flights, and I couldn't get back to Indiana for his funeral. I was stuck. And so now, and all I mean by that is all of us have, it was an emotional day for all of us. And it's an emotional time. And so I think about all of that. And we all of us, not me, not you, Les, all of us went through a terrible day that day. And we just can't forget. And you never know what the next day is going to bring. So
no, you don't.
Let's just kumbaya, be happy, and frolic through the mist. And have a good time and learn.
Amen to that, brother. Sorry, I cut you off.
Okay, so with that, Les, do your job. Hold on. I'm going to let you do your job properly here. I got to cue it up correctly. There's a method I have to do for you. Okay, go ahead. Let it rip, Tater Chip.
Foremost, Jimmy would like to thank everyone, especially all the new callers who called in tonight. Stay tuned. Next is Night Watch, hosted by Todd Sheets. Then it's Spooky South Coast with host Tim Weisberg. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. The announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vital, and Mark D. Kovar. Music is done by Doug Aldrich. Show intro is done by, everybody say it with me,
Space Boy.
Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. This is Les, the closer, and Jimmy and I are wishing you a good night and a safe weekend. Are you ready, Jimmy?
See ya. Thanks, Les. We're out of here.
Bye. Out of here.